everybody, and welcome inside a Monday edition of Running Point. Happy New Week. As for the first time in our little new era of Running Point, we have scores to recap. Football scores. Week 1 is in the books officially. It took till last night to officially wrap up Week 1. Garfield had to wait a couple of days to finish their to get their game underway, but we did finish Week 1. And Ty, what a week it was. We're going to recap all those games of Week 1. We're also going to talk to Dana Balish at 1 o'clock, as always, on a Monday. And then we're going to get into our last volleyball previews. We still have the second half of Division 4 to preview from volleyball. We kind of put a pause button on that on Thursday to talk about the football and the football scores and the football previews. So we have a full show today. And Ty, first, this general takeaways from Week 1. What was your general takeaway from Week 1 of football when you look at all the scores and all the things that went on?
I think out of it, there was a lot less defensive games than I expected. There was a lot of offense over this weekend, surprisingly, in a lot of games. There was a lot of teams that had some pretty high scoring games and some scores that were up there, which was surprising for Week 1. And I think especially too, it's warm out. And it's a lot easier to pass, but I think the quarterback play from a lot of quarterbacks in this area, Anthony, had some really special Week 1s. And yeah, it's warmer out. It's a little bit easier to pass. But hey, coming off of a year where we just had COVID and you just got back into the full swing of here's actual football now, to come out Week 1 and for some of these guys to do what they did Week 1, we know what Jackson Johnson did with Salem. We know what Balone did with Lowville. They all did some pretty special things this weekend. And I think that was the funnest part, I think, highlighting this weekend.
Comment section is live, and it's sponsored by Boardman Mitsubishi. Whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch, you can comment on this show, and we will see it live and pop it up and talk about whatever you want to talk about. The fan line is also open, 330-886-0813, the number to call. Ty, and even though that being said, there were some defenses that really did step up, even if their offenses were giving them a lot of points to work with. There were some defenses that were pretty impressive.
Some defensive games to definitely talk about. I mean, Canfield Poland is certainly one you got to talk about. And you know what? As lopsided as the score was, but being there, Fitch Cheney was actually a pretty good defensive game. Obviously, we know there were some unfortunate injuries that happened on the Cheney side of things, and I think that game would have been a lot closer had there was not an injury to Hewlett at the time. But I definitely think that was another game. But I mean, other than that too, a few other games too where we saw some really good defensive or defenses too, and some low scoring games. How about East and Cleveland Shaw too? That was another low scoring barn burner game all the way to the end. That one was real fun to the end, and a pretty fun upset, I would say too, by Youngstown East standards, but not a upset for you, Anthony. I know you were betting on them.
Hey, I was rolling with the Golden Bears, man. It's hard to come into historic Reign Stadium and win. All right, so let's start these recaps with maybe the most anticipated game of the Friday night, South Range Springfield. The Raiders came into Tiger Country and snapped their regular season winning streak. They beat Springfield 41-21, and that kind of surprised me, that score. Remember, I said on Friday, if South Range is going to win, it's going to be a close game. And obviously, South Range had other plans. They ran away with this one.
Yeah, they did. And you know what? It was just, I feel like there was a little bit of jet lag with Springfield. And you got to remember, too, playing 2 consecutive seasons all the way to the very end, these kids are pretty tired, too. And playing all those extra games and all those extra weeks, it's going to do some wear and tear on these kids' bodies throughout the years, too. So, I mean, yeah, they played all these extra games. So it is going to be kind of hard because you have all these extra games under you. But I mean, give it all the credit to the Raiders where it's due, too. I mean, they handled that Springfield offense very well, holding them to 21 points. I think that's one of the lowest scoring margins I've seen in quite some time against the Springfield Tigers. But this is honestly a loss. I don't chalk it up as such a huge thing for Springfield, especially with the teams being expanded in the playoffs, and you lost to a division up a team in South Range. So you're not really, I don't think, looking at this loss as something that's going to be too drastic. Springfield's definitely a team I think that can refocus and go even 9-1 the rest of the season if they really wanted to. I think Springfield's going to be just fine. I think this is just a bump in the road week 1.
South Range put out the formula. ball control, finish drives, force a couple turnovers, and that's how you
Yeah.
beat Springfield.
And
Easier said than done.
easier
A lot
said than
easier
done.
said than done.
And you got to
Especially
be able to do that to it.
because we saw a lot of teams control the ball last year and hold the ball for a little bit more than the Tigers, but they couldn't finish drives. South Range finished every drive, and they also forced a couple of turnovers. Bo Brungard threw 2 interceptions, along with being responsible for all 3 touchdowns that the Tigers scored. Force a couple of turnovers, finish your drives, and hold the ball. You'll have a good chance against Springfield.
And like I talked about too, and that about this game, if there's a turnover differential that favors one team over the other, that's going to be the team that wins. And I think Bo Brungard too. I mean, like you said, it was just a night where he wasn't as sharp. He's usually a lot sharper than that. You're not going to get many 2 interception games out of Bo, and that's the biggest thing when trying to beat Springfield. Is you got to hope that Bo has a couple of mistakes like that, and he doesn't make too many of them too often. So that's one of the challenges you got to look in going to Springfield. And also, don't think that the Tigers, now that they've been beat by South Range, using this formula, that they're going to allow many teams to beat them with that same formula. I promise you, Coach Guerrero is going to have a different game plan and reconvene with his guys. And I don't think you're going to see Springfield lose the way they did to South Range much too often in the future.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a lot about quarterbacks making their debuts. Square Pack had a pretty good first game under center for the Raiders. You'll look at his numbers: 301 total yards of offense. He threw for 209 with 2 touchdowns, and he ran for 92 with a score. And then Dominguez did what Dominguez always does. He ran for 199 yards and scored 3 touchdowns. So we expected that in Dominguez. Billy Squarepack was a question mark because it was his first start. I would say that's a check mark on your first start of your career, buddy.
Pretty efficient too. I mean, in every area of the game.
He did a good job, and the Raiders once again get a win over Springfield, 41-21 to snap Springfield's regular game winning streak. They hadn't lost since 2018 in the regular season. That was to McDonald. So for the first time, the Tigers are going to have to bounce back from a loss. Last 2 years, their loss ended their season in the state championship. Now they're going to have to come back 1 week later and rebound after a loss. And if Coach Guerrero, I don't think there's any doubt that he's going to have his team ready. I would be very on alert if I was the team that has to play Springfield this week, which I believe is Brookfield.
Yeah, and Springfield fans, look at me real quick. Look at me for a second, right? The last 2 seasons, you've lost 1 game in the last 2 seasons. Would you rather that 1 game come week 1? I know it stings against the Raiders, but would you rather it come week 1 or week 16? I think this is going to be fine for Springfield. And you know what? Some teams almost need that to fuel them and energize them the rest of the season. Some teams need that loss in the regular season to kind of remind them and get them refocused on the actual task at hand. And don't think that Springfield and Bo Brungard and all those guys over there with the Tigers aren't pissed off over this week 1 win or week 1 loss, I should say, and that they aren't going to come out week 2 guns a-blazing. I would not want to be on Springfield's schedule the next 9 games of the docket because they're going to be playing angry.
A solid point about Springfield, too. There are a lot of new faces on that team, especially the offensive line. It's going to take them a little bit to kind of start playing as a unit because, you can't just throw offensive linemen in there and say, hey, go play well. I mean, they're playing as a unit. They have to trust each other. They have to work as a unit, one big line. And it just takes a while to mesh. And I think South Range, their aggressive defensive line, aggressive linebackers took advantage of that. And Springfield's going to have to just keep working at it. They have another week of practice to kind of get their offensive line where they need to be.
Yeah, and I think Springfield will figure it out. And once they do gel and mesh together, it's going to be a world of hurt on whoever they face. And they're going to have to try to figure out something defensively to go up against these Tigers because we know how explosive that offense is once they're all running as a well-oiled machine.
Ty, let's talk about the game that you were at. Fitch beats Cheney 27-0. And obviously, before we even preview that game, or before we even recap that game, we have to talk about, Mr. Hewlett and how much we're thinking about him, how much we definitely hated seeing that injury And we already made the social media post. He's going to come back stronger. We know that. We have faith in the kid. We hope he gets back real soon.
And you know what? I mean, the whole situation when it unfolded, you never want to see injuries happen in sports. And I remember I remember it happening because I think this was like the first time I've ever seen like a major injury at the high school level. So it rocks you too, because you never want to see these kids get hurt, especially someone of Jason Hewlett's talent level, which he plays all 48 minutes of that game. That game's a lot closer than 27-0 at the final score, because he is that dynamic of a playmaker. His legs, when they get going and he turns on the jets, he can really beat almost anybody out of that quarterback position down the field. And you know what? Coach Emil has done a great job. And you know how heartbroken Coach Emil was, but he does a good job of trying to get these guys to believe in a program, not just a player. And I think that's the biggest thing. And not just take anything away from what Jason Hewlett is to that team, because he is a huge dynamite piece to that team. But Coach Emil is able to get these guys to believe in a program and a system because they believe in him. And I think that's the biggest thing going forward. And I think that's why Chaney's going to be fine. You got to throw in a new quarterback in there, and Andrew Galt at the time. He had some strives too. Yeah, there were some interceptions, and Deshaun Vaughn had a fantastic game on the defensive side for Fitch. But what we saw Galt doing too, especially in that third and fourth quarter, he was starting to make these connections a lot more. He was starting to make these pass connections a lot more frequently. There was just a couple of catches too, hit the receiver's hands, dropped him. It was a night too, and I said it on the broadcast. It was a night for Chaney where if anything could go wrong, it did go wrong for them. And you almost... It was almost just like a purge of everything, and you just hope that there's nothing else wrong that goes in the season, and you just got it all checkmarked in one game, because that's exactly what it felt. Anytime Chaney had some offensive drives going, not even all the time was it Fitch's defense necessarily that was stopping it. It was either a callback. There was a lot of two where it would get callback, 10-yard penalty, 15-yard penalty, 5-yard penalty, or a drop pass. And it was just those type of plays will just derail an offense. And there were so many times where Chaney crossed over into Fitch's side of the field, but something like that brought him on the other side, or a turnover brought it back to Fitch, or a turnover on downs, or an incomplete pass that maybe was in the hands and was dropped. It was just an unfortunate night for Chaney, but I don't think it's something that Chaney cannot rebound from, because losing Hewlett is hard. And of course our thoughts and prayers are with Hewlett, his entire family and everything. And we obviously wish the best for him going forward. But I think Chaney has enough athletes on the team that they're going to be just fine.
Obviously we have DJ Oakley popping in. He might have some breaking news for us on Running Point.
Yeah, we have some breaking news coming into the YSN newsroom. The game with East Palestine and Wyndham has been canceled. Wyndham has some bout with COVID-19, as we're reading right now. So if you're out there and you're looking for a week 2 opponent, East Palestine actively looking for an opponent to replace on their schedule. Dwayne Pavkovich is the AD there. If you need to reach out to him directly or reach out to us at YSN, we can connect the dots for you. But again, breaking news into the newsroom here at HQ. The East Palestine game with Wyndham has been canceled for this Friday. So you can get more up to date on ysnlive.com. We'll have obviously more information, being as though we're based here in East Palestine, more information to come.
That's a shame, especially for a Wyndham team that had such an impressive week 1.
Well, and now you start wondering, they played Lisbon.
Right.
So what does this do to Lisbon?
We had to do this dance a lot last year.
Yeah, and this is something that we did, as you said, Anthony, a ton last year. So now you're connecting the dots on all these different places, and where did the kids go? And now, if they played on a Friday, did they go to a Saturday game? Did they go to a volleyball doesn't kick off till this week, so that should be okay. You'd think, you'd hope. But now it starts to, what do they call it? The tracing backwards.
Yeah, contact tracing. Yep.
So you look at that, and this could be an entire mess. It stinks, man. It's just bad. We saw it happen with, the game that I did on Saturday. It was Jackson Milton, who Chalker just wiped out the first 5 games of their season. Had nothing to do with COVID, but it had to do with, teams not having enough players. And that Hilltop team that Jackson Mountain actually played had the same thing, where a team that they were supposed to play went to 8-man football. But then you have COVID on top of this, and it's just stacking the bricks. And you hope that this just goes away someday, but it's evident that we're going to see more of this before it gets better.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of back to normal, but we got to remember it's still in the rearview mirror a little bit.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. Wyndham coming off that huge win. Yeah. I mean, they are out to prove something out in Wyndham, and we love having them as one of our teams. And I think this East Palestine Wyndham matchup would have been really, really good for both sides. Palestine looking to bounce back after a 55-0 loss. Wyndham probably a team that's a little bit closer to where they should be playing. And Wyndham, if they could start 2-0, that's a big feather in their cap for their program. East Palestine obviously would like to get back to even at 1-1. Just unfortunate, just really unfortunate. These kids have worked so hard to be subject to this stuff. So unfortunate.
Yeah, we definitely hope that they can get back for week 3. That's another thing. Can they rebound in a week? I mean, we hope that it doesn't turn into an outbreak or something like that on the team.
Yeah, so we'll have obviously the Figley boys that did not get to go to Malvern last week will be off again this week. 2 of my good friends here from East Palestine. So they're going to be bummed out. And that's one less home game for East Palestine. So you look at that and you go, actively, again, trying to get somebody to come. But, I mean, on 4 days' notice, it's going to be tricky. It's going to be tricky. And, some of the teams that might be open are only going to be open because of COVID. Right. So probably not some of the teams you're going to want to play either. So they're going to do their best. And, if they have to travel, I'm sure they will. But, just to get these games under their belt, and there's going to be a lot of people frustrated here in Bulldog country because, they take their football very seriously. So, all right, that's your breaking news, Ant. Sorry about that.
You're fine. That's your job as the CEO. So once again, just to recap that, what DJ just said, the East Palestine versus Wyndham Week 2 game has been canceled.
And going forward, Anthony, I mean, we knock on wood all the time, but we talk about it too. And it's something that you try not to talk about, but it's going to keep popping its head in the room until you talk about it. So it's like you have to acknowledge that it exists, but you don't want to pay any attention to it, but you have to acknowledge that it is in the room, and it is going to be a prevalent threat. Whatever side of the fence you stick on with the argument, it means no different here. It's still going to be prevalent in high school sports, is what it seems like, because it is still affecting and canceling games. You just hope that this doesn't get any worse than it does, and it's just a game or two maybe every week or so. Even that I feel like is bad, but it's better than you start seeing half the teams drop in a week, and then we go back into the oh my God, I don't even want to think about limited capacity going forward.
Brandon McPherson chiming in on the Boardman Mitsubishi comment line, and yeah, we're not surprised that he knew about this. He seems to be like,
he's the Wyndham guy over there. Brandon is. He's got all of our inside scoop. If I need any information on the Bombers, I'm texting Brandon.
Right. I mean, Brandon's been a huge help for us, and he was probably a huge help getting Wyndham to be a part of YSN, not just helping us with getting information once they were there. So yeah, we were thinking about East Palestine, and we're hoping they get another game in because that program needs games. That's for sure. Let's get back to this Fitz-Cheney matchup real quick and just talk about the things that Fitz did well. Obviously a lot of things went wrong for Cheney, but we don't want to discount the credit in the game that the Falcons played.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, J.R. Tellington and Jace Austin and Milford Cheney, they were running the ball pretty effectively last night. I think the problem when it comes down to it, too, and it's just so unfortunate that Jason got hurt because you bring in Galt, and and not that Galt wasn't able to start throwing the ball late, but you could tell he came in, he was not expecting to play a few minutes into that first quarter. So he came in, and butterflies were the size of eagles in his stomach, and he probably came in, nerves were a little bit high, and the Falcons took advantage of that because they game planned for the run everywhere there on out. They game planned for the run, and they forced him into passing scenarios. And he was just trying to work through, because he was just thrown into a game, work through it. And he did end up working towards the end. He figured it out, and he started playing effectively. I think Galt's going to be one of those guys that I think you're going to see drastically improve over the course of the season. As a sophomore quarterback, too, I think it's going to be huge getting him this pretty much full season of experience. You got to imagine he's going to get now. I think it's going to pay off for Chaney in the long run, having another guy have 10 games under his belt and in-game experience come next year too. So I think it's going to be huge for Chaney to have that at least. So you try to look at the positives in the situation, but not to take anything from what Fitch's defense did, because Fitch's defense played extraordinarily well too. It's just that you just wish you would have saw number 5 playing for Chaney.
You want strength versus strength,
Yeah. You wanted that. But
TJ Parker, he came on the Joe Dickey Electric post-game show. Before he said a word about his team, he said the same thing. Like, heart breaks for him. We wanted him on the field. We wanted to win with him on the field. And as much as we are enjoying this win, it kind of sucks that we won without him on the field.
He was the one, too. Coach Parker was the one, because it happened near the Falcons sideline. He was the one that initially called the timeout and called everyone over to it. He used one of his timeouts to stop the game clock, because he just wanted everyone getting there. He didn't want to wait for an injury timeout. He wanted people on the scene as quickly as possible too. And I mean, yeah, you definitely go into that. And Coach Parker, obviously, class act, was definitely more concerned about that going at the end of the game. But both Coach Parker and Coach Emil know that the strength and the heart that Jason puts into the game, and how much number 5 loves the game of football, and how impassioned he is, and how passionate he is about the team and for Chaney. So that hurt both coaches too, both Coach Emil and Coach Parker, to see number 5 go down when he is such a big, not only big piece for the offense on that team, but a big emotional piece on that team too, as that real leader and that guy to get behind. Now, who steps up now, Chaney? Who's going to be that guy? Who's stepping up as the leader in the locker room now is going to be the question.
That's something that Coach Emil will definitely have to figure out this week, as he's got a lot on his plate this week of practice. Let's talk about one of the more surprising scores. Maybe not because of the outcome, but definitely because of the spread. Brookfield went into McDonald and just absolutely owned that game, 35-6. They beat McDonald. Man, I think the Warriors just made a clear statement to everyone that they're going to be tough this year. I mean, we expected that game to be very competitive, and Brookfield dominated it.
Yeah, and McDonald too, very good defense usually year to year, very good run defense, but I don't think Brookfield was too concerned with it too, because they were unleashing a full firing squad of offense on it. But I mean, honestly too, look at what Brookfield's defense did against McDonald. Even more impressive, holding them to just the 6. 35-6. This is a huge win for Brookfield, I think, going into this week 1, giving them some confidence against a very good McDonald team. But I think for McDonald, this is a game too where they're just going to need to refocus going into week 2. We know what McDonald is going to have this year, and we know their defense is going to be pretty dynamic as well. And those battles in the trenches are going to be won and lost too, with McDonald's offensive and defensive line. But I think it's going to come down to what McDonald comes out with as a response from this week 1 game. And I think there's some pieces that McDonald was trying to figure out going into this week 1 versus Brookfield. And Brookfield, maybe not an ideal opponent to what McDonald plays to their strengths in facing defensively. But I think this is a matchup that they needed, and McDonald needed to see a team like this so they can realize, hey, there's some work to be done in some certain aspects on defense here.
And the Pulaski brothers were the highlight for Brookfield's offense. Quarterback Don Pulaski. Get that right? Yeah. Quarterback Donovan Pulaski and the wide receiver Dave Pulaski. They both just were highlights of that team, and they're going into a Springfield next week, and Springfield's going to be bouncing back after a loss, and Brookfield's going to be riding high. All of a sudden, that game gets really, really, really interesting.
And Springfield and McDonald both losing a week 1 matchup too, so both looking to rebound week 2 with a win to gain some ground in the conferences. So I mean, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting week 2 matchup. Both these teams needing a win.
Talk about good defenses. Let's move on to Boardman and what their defense was able to do against Cardinal Mooney. Boardman looked pretty impressive. 28-7, they beat the Cardinals.
Yeah, Boardman did look really impressive too, as the Falcons' rival, playing Cardinal Mooney this year and this week, I should say. And that week 1 too, 28-7, did a very good job defensively, like you said, Anthony, against Mooney, who I thought Mooney too is very improved from last year. And I think it was just an instance again where Mooney is they're going to take a week or two to really get going. I feel like Mooney's still fairly young too. But I think with all the experience and having a semi-deep playoff run last year, winning a few playoff games for Mooney, I think it's going to be huge for the Cardinals going into this season. And again, I think week 1, you don't put too much weight into it, win or loss. Yeah, you would love to win week 1 and start your season off getting that first win out of the way. But I mean, a week 1 loss doesn't make or define a season. And we saw Poland basically say that last year with a week 1 loss to South Range and making a deep playoff run as well. I mean, a week 1 loss is not the worst thing in the world. And I think as far as this game's concerned, I don't think Cardinal Mooney's going to put too much weight into it. I think they're going to come back, and they're going to come back stronger like they usually do. But nonetheless, a very, very solid week 1 win for a Boardman team that looks to be pretty tough this year in the AAC.
Sean O'Horo is going to be a player that we're going to be talking about all season long. He looked very impressive, got Boardman on the board in the first half. It was a pretty defensive battle for most of the first half. Boardman got on the board late in that second quarter and then made a lot of halftime adjustments and ran away with the game in the second half. But Sean O'Horo was the one that got them going, a big touchdown run in the second quarter. He also had a 32-yard run to capped it off. He got in the end zone 3 times total. A performance from Sean O'Horo that we could be seeing a lot this year.
Yeah, very, very well, too. And, I mean, you look at some of these other matchups, too. They're going to have to face Fitch, too, which is going to be a fun matchup, I think, especially after the way the result ended last year. I think Boardman definitely has a sour taste in their mouth from that game from last year. I think it's going to be fun, and I think this Boardman Spartans football team is going to be very fun to watch this year. And I think they're going to be drastically improved from what they were last year. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see Boardman make a pretty decent playoff run with how good their defense is over there.
Now, let's talk about how impressive Liberty looked. 30-12. They put a flag into their program. They returned the roar, as their motto is this year. They returned it with authority on Friday night, dominating Western Reserve. But really, you look at these stats, and we appreciate Liberty football for supplying some really good numbers for us. Western Reserve led in total offense, rush yards, pass yards, time of possession, but the big number that sticks out in the difference of this game, Liberty's defense forced turnovers last year. They forced turnovers on Friday. 3 turnovers they forced against Western Reserve. That was the difference.
And that's what I talked about too, going into this game as well. That if Liberty is going to beat this powerhouse perennially in Western Reserve, you're going to have to force some turnovers. I still called Western Reserve because Western Reserve was a power and continues to be a powerhouse year in and year out. But you saw it too, where Western Reserve pretty much won every category, but that one important category, that turnover differential, can really make or break a game. And you could, like you said, Anthony, you could have all the yards in the world you want. You could beat your opponent in pretty much every other statistical category. But if the turnovers aren't in your favor and that diff is heavily in your opponent's favor, it makes it very, very hard to win football games. And Liberty, like you said, coming in new team coming in basically with the roar returning and going back to that old culture. I think Liberty, they wanted it more on Friday night, and they went out and they took it.
Devontae Ventures, 134 rush yards, 3 touchdowns for him. And then Chris Cunningham, that's just a receiver name, right? I mean, Chris Cunningham, it screams wide receiver. He had 6 receptions, 134 yards and 2 touchdowns. So
good productive day from Liberty, but Western Reserve's usually one of those teams that they're good week to week, and you saw what they were able to do against Liberty. So not a unsuccessful game against Liberty. You just got to limit those turnovers if you're the Blue Devils, and I think Western Reserve is going to be just fine. It's another one of those games too where we talk about it just seems like everything that could go wrong for Western Reserve did, and they gave up those turnovers when they could have gotten themselves back into the game. But I think Western Reserve, look for them to play sharper week 2, a sharper, more Western Reserve style brand of football.
They definitely moved the ball well, 320 yards of total offense, 217 coming on the ground, and a huge chunk of that was David Altier, who we all know is going to be one of the best running backs in the area, hands down. So they moved the ball 103 passing yards to go along with 217 rush yards. They also won the time of possession battle. No, actually they lost it. Sorry. It was 24-30 for Liberty, 23-21 for Western Reserve. So the only stat that the Liberty won was time of possession and turnovers. And, those can be two telling stats when looking at who won the game.
Yeah, and I think those are the two that I think people need to start looking at more. And a lot of coaches, believe it or not, look at time of possession as one of the biggest keys in football, especially to victory, is how long do we have the football? How long do our opponents have the football? And it's a simple question, but it's a big question in determining the outcome of a game. And I think that's huge for Western Reserve too, because if they're going forward, if Western Reserve is doing this patient ground and pound approach with David Altier primarily as your offensive threat, and passing is going to be your second option, but the first is going to be the run, you're going to see Western Reserve typically win a lot of time of possession battles if they're going to be a run-first type of offense, and that's what I think Western Reserve needs to start winning if they want to win football games. If they're ahead in time of possession, I think Western Reserve has a very good chance at beating a lot of football teams in the area.
Liberty wins their first season opening game since 2012, and they'll look to go 2-0 next week as they play Girard.
And I mean, Girard, too, this is a game, too, where Liberty might come out of the season 2-0. And Girard, after that week 1, they want to come in, too, and they want to beat up on Liberty.
Well,
so this is
both their next opponents in week 2 and 3 lost in week 1. So Liberty has a good chance to go into conference play 3-0.
And that would be huge for the Leopards program. I know we've talked with some alumni on here throughout the show before the season, and we really it's really exciting to see that Liberty is coming back as a program too, and they're getting back to the success that they once were, and some great athletes over there in Leopard country, and they proved it with a big week 1 win.
We'll take our first break of the day. We'll be back with more recaps of week 1 in Friday Night Football next on Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
At Greenwood Chevrolet, shop with confidence knowing we're ready to go the extra mile for you. With the largest selection of used vehicles in the Valley, backed by the Greenwood Advantage Warranty. Every one of our vehicles has undergone our own 126-point inspection, so it passes the most important inspection, yours. No other dealership has the extra inventory, gives you extra for your trade, and goes the extra mile for you. Only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
New things happen all day. Some are good, some not so good. In today's complicated world, while you're busy working, playing, and living life, we're busy helping you make sense of the day's news. And there's only one place where it comes together with clarity, context, and accountability. It's 21 News at 6 with me, Madison Tromler, and Derek Steyer.
21 News at 6. It's what the day's news really means to you.
Welcome home to a home made homier with Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods. Inspiration starts at BairdBrothers.com and is turned into reality when high-quality hardwoods are delivered right to your home. Baird Brothers has the latest design trends, shiplap and skinny lap interior siding, antique oak rustic flooring. And, well, you'll find them all at BairdBrothers.com. Ordered easily, delivered conveniently, enjoyed comfortably. BairdBrothers.com.
WRS Wealth Advisors, the area's premier wealth and retirement specialists. Located on South Avenue in Boardman. WRS Wealth Advisors, the area's premier wealth and retirement specialists. Located on South Avenue in Boardman.
Custom order your Ford your way at Tri-State Ford. Choose the available features that fit your life and style from the all-new 2022 Ford Maverick F-150 Lightning through the entire Ford lineup. Pick your color, trim level, and options. Plus, get the Tri-State Ford Advantage, including a 10-year, 200,000-mile warranty and more. Start your custom order today. Stop in or visit tristateford.net. Customer-focused, community-driven. Tri-State Ford, East Liverpool.
Welcome back to the Monday edition of Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Anthony Hartwig alongside Ty Bartell as we pop him in right here. And we are continuing talking about the week 1 results. We want to remind everybody that the comment section brought to you by Boardman Mitsubishi is live. Whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch, you can comment and we will see it, pop it up on the screen, and talk about whatever you want to talk about. The fan line also open, 330-886-0813. And Ty, next team we got to talk about, LeBray. We talked to Coach Armini last week. Boy, did they look impressive, 40-0 over Lakeview to get the week 1 win.
And you know what? And this goes right back to what Coach Armini said. And you look at the loss, and yeah, it's disappointing if you are Lakeview, but looking at this team and looking at what Coach Armini said, he flat out said he knows that Lakeview was improved, and he's like, we have to give it our all. He respected the opponent through and through. And Coach Armini was saying, we're not taking this game any lighter than we take any other game. We're going to come in prepared, and we're going to treat this game like it's going to be just as big as any other game. And you saw LeBray play with that urgency and that sense of we need to put up points, and we need to put up points quick, as if they're playing a team that's able to put up 50, 60 points on them. And that's the kind of mentality they need to have. And that goes back to respecting their opponent. So I don't take any sort of ill will towards LeBray for what they did and how they played. And for Lakeview, I did see the improvements, I think, that Coach Armini was talking about and how he suggested. You see Lakeview, how much quicker they are to the ball, how much quicker they are to getting the defense. They're a lot sharper and a lot crisper. As you could see, Lakeview over there, they're learning how to play football at the varsity level. A lot of the younger kids that are coming up from the 8th grade years into freshman, sophomore years. They're learning how to play football at the high school varsity level. And you could tell and you could see the improvements just by watching them on the field, that they have that football IQ is a lot higher from last year to this year.
Yeah, and hey, guess what? Devin Carter, he's still running the ball really well. Over 100 yards, 3 touchdowns for him. Trayvon Drake not just doing work on the offensive side, he had 2 interceptions on the defensive side. And we all know that Aiden Stevens shine like the superstar he is. So their offense and defense both look very impressive on the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And LeBray's going to be a very tough team to beat going into this season because of all those offensive weapons that they have. And now you look at what they're able to do defensively. And I mean, posting a shutout week 1 is pretty impressive. And that was the biggest question mark last year for the Vikings was, yeah, you could put up a lot of offense. You could put up a lot of points, but can you hold teams and prevent them from doing the same thing to you? And we saw LeBray kind of struggle with that. It's kind of why they got knocked out of the playoffs last year, but they were able to contend with a lot of teams. We saw Brookfield offensively, but imagine if they had some defense and get a little bit more stops, or that defense was just a little improved. And from what we saw on LeBray's side of things for defense, it's pretty improved from last year, and that gets me worried if I'm facing the Vikings.
Yeah, and when you look at LeBray, and we talk about teams that made statements. 40-0 is a pretty big statement for the rest of the area and the teams that are on LeBray's schedule.
Absolutely, too. And I mean, LeBray, again, too, from what Coach Armini does with his guys, they're going to play you just like they played Lakeview. There's not going to be a difference in game to game. They're going to play you with the same energy, the same urgency, and that same drive of, we need to score, we need to put up points, and we need to put them up quick on you. And that's scary. For a lot of defenses that have to face LeBray, go into LeBray or face them, or have LeBray come into town and face them, knowing that you have an offense that literally feels like they need to score every single possession and aren't satisfied unless they really do until they get that win in the book. So it's an offense that is very scary to face. And if you're a defensive coordinator, I have so much sympathy for you trying to find a game plan to go up against this very effective LeBray offense.
Imagine what kind of pressure that has to put on opposing offenses to know that if we don't score this possession, the game might be over.
Yeah. And I mean, it puts pressure on both the offense and defense. Defense for saying we need to stop these guys at least once, and offense saying, boy, if they're putting up 40 points a game or close to it, we got to put up that type of pointage as well to come away victorious. So puts a lot of pressure on teams. And when you go to play LeBray, you need to play your best because you know they're bringing theirs.
We might hear from Richie Giuliano in a little bit to talk more about the LeBray game. He was on the call and he wants to talk about that game. So we're trying to get him on board. But as we wait for him, let's move on to another final score. And let's talk a little bit about Warren JFK not missing a beat and still looking like the well-oiled machine that they looked like last year.
Yeah, and we talked about that too. And I mentioned it as well. As special as Cam Hollabaugh was, that team was pretty darn special last year as well. And they are showcasing it this year, not missing a beat. Like you said, a 48-6 win over champion. Big win to start for Warren JFK. And I think it was the statement they needed to make to say, you know, hey, we loved Cam Hollabaugh on this team, and he was huge in getting us to the state title last year, but he was not the sole reason we made it. There's 11 guys on offense. There's 11 guys on defense. We as a team played well enough to get there last year, and they proved it again tonight that they are still in that same breath, in that same category. You still have to talk to them as a Division VII state title contender going into the season.
And JFK set the tone from the start. They had a long, lengthy drive and ended a touchdown. Forced a 3-and-out from champion. They were up 14-0 before you knew it.
Yeah, and I mean they're one of those teams that is they're gonna do that to you as well. They're gonna put points up on you, and they have a lot of speed over there too in Warren JFK, and they don't mind beating you with the jet engines when they need to, and they'll turn them on with a lot of guys over there. I think JFK is going to be a fun team to watch, and I think you're going to see them have a lot of that same success that they did last year because of what we talked about what Cam Hollabaugh did, and you're seeing too a lot of those kids are taking on some of Cam's leadership traits too. So what he did in JFK is still leaving a lasting impression on the school.
And then another team that looked impressive, and we talk about quarterbacks making their debut. Drew DeShields at West Branch. He looked pretty good. So did the Warriors. They win 46-6 over East Liverpool.
I mean, West Branch scoring over 40 points. When did we hear that? That's almost every single time we talk about the West Branch Warriors. Oh, yeah, you're not under the radar anymore, West Branch. You might have liked it last year. You're not anymore because we're talking about you, and we're talking about you a lot because Drew DeShields is an absolute baller on the field, and he is able and capable of beating you in so many ways. And I think West Branch beating East Liverpool in the fashion that they did, and remember, East Liverpool, a pretty darn good team last year too, and still I think East Liverpool is going to be pretty good this year. That just shows how good West Branch played them and how good they are going to be, I think, this year, because I think that offense is absolutely stellar. It's going to be dynamic again. It's going to be an offense that's probably going to average in the 40s or the high 30s again this year. The defense is going to be the biggest thing. And if they're holding teams like this, if you're holding teams under 20 points and you're scoring 40, I don't know. I might not be a mathematician, Anthony, but I equate that to a lot of wins in a season.
Yeah, and you look at Drew DeShields' numbers, 14 for 21 through the air in the first half alone, 137 yards. He finished the game, I think, 16 for 23, 157 yards. And he also ran the ball for 127 on 16 carries. So he was responsible for over 250 yards of total offense. Their defense, the Warriors' defense, I should say, forced 4 turnovers in the first half. I mean, so it wasn't just an offense on display. West Branch's defense came to play as well. That's what we see in a lot of these games. Offense has really stepped up, but you can't discount what their defenses did. LeBray's defense, West Branch's defense. A lot of these defenses showed up and backed up their high-scoring offenses.
And they knew they needed to, and I think West Branch is going to be one of those. West Branch and LeBray, we already talked about them back-to-back, but these are going to be 2 teams that are going to be fun to watch, and I would not be surprised if you're talking about them late in the season, state title contenders. And I mean, that's a serious, I mean, you want to be, you try to be humble, and you know the teams that are in the Cleveland, the Columbus, and the Cincinnati area, but with these teams improving defenses, and we already know what these 2 teams can do to you offensively last year, oh, man. And, I mean, you're talking the turnover game, too, especially in West Branch's case. if they're forcing and winning the turnover battle on top of the fact that they average 39, 40, 41 points a game, oh boy, going to be a long season if you have to face the Warriors.
And let's talk about one of maybe the best offensive performance of the week. In Hubbard, TC Caffey did something special.
I talked with too.
Really special.
When this happened too, before we get into it, I made sure to tag Jamie and Rome on it. And I could, if there was one place, I mean, obviously I love my Austintown, Ohio, and I love Greenwood Chevrolet Field. But if there was one place I would have loved to witness or be a part of Friday night, it would have been that game. That would have been one of those games I would have loved to witness and be a part of, because the numbers you saw from what TC was able to do, how many running backs are going to come 450 plus yards in a game? You're not going to see many guys put up 450 plus rushing yards in a single game. And also to complement, what was it, 5 rushing touchdowns too, Anthony? Like, just Madden type numbers from TC Caffey. Someone was Xbox controllering him the whole game, and someone was using the juke maneuvers and the spin moves with him the whole game, because it seemed like he was just playing like a video game.
He broke 2 school records, and he also got on the Ohio OHSAA number 15 in the record books for yards in a game, with 456 total rush yards.
And I mean 15 too. What was what's the most all time? Do we have that offhand?
We'll have to do that.
If I could get that most offhand, I want to know what year it was, because I guarantee you he's with some very elite company. You're talking 15 other players in the entirety of Ohio football for years. I don't know how many years it was, but it's been years. And I mean, he is with 15 elite company. That's huge for TC Caffey.
Hey, it's Richie Giuliano. He called the LeBray game on Friday. Richie, real quick, talk about how good this LeBray team looked on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I think the biggest question mark this year was going to be their defense. I know when you guys did that interview with Coach John Armini, he talked about, can we stop the run? And they did indeed do that on Friday night. They were electric offensively. I think everybody knew that coming into this season, that they were going to score 30-plus points a game, and they ended up scoring 40. But defensively, they were a strong point. I mean, they had a couple of goal line stands that they were able to, switch the field and switch the momentum. So defensively, they impressed me more than they did offensively, because coming in, we knew they had the 3-headed monster of course, Carter, Stevens, and Drake.
Yeah, and Trayvon Drake, man, his defense, 2 interceptions for him on defense? Yeah. Maybe outshining his offense a little bit, which we thought was hard to do.
Yeah, and they tried to get him touches because, early in the ballgame, it was hard. It was a lot of Aiden Stevens, a lot of Devin Carter on the ground, because that's what was working. They were getting 6-7 yards on every first down carry, and it's hard to get people involved when you're getting yardage like that. So they tried to get him little dinks and dunks there, a couple of bubble screens and a couple slant passes. But, man, defensively, he was a ball hawk, and I wrote that in my story. Back-to-back possessions before the half, interceptions that leaded to 7 points. So defensively, he really helped his team out.
Devin Carter looked just as impressive on the ground as we expect. Broke the school record last year, I believe, in rush yards in a season, and he might one up that this year.
I mean, he's special. I mean, the way he's able to break away from tackles is just incredible. I mean, if you're going there with an arm tackle, good luck. He's by you at that point. Just his speed and his motility, especially once he gets into the open field. If you're going one-on-one with Devin Carter, I have Carter about 85% of the time. It's very hard to bring the guy down. It needs 2-3 bodies at most. And, he's just a fantastic runner, very smart. He knows the field very well. He knows his blockers. They've been playing together for 3 years now. So, he's just an explosive runner. And he should have had 4 touchdowns, actually. There was 1 touchdown they called back on him due to a holding call. So what an impressive night for him right off the rip.
Richie, I don't know how much you know about Valley Christian or if you really watched anything of them this year, but that's LeBray's next opponent. They're going to Valley. To preview this game a little bit, how do you expect this game to go, and how do you expect LeBray to play Valley Christian?
Well, I know Valley Christian got that big win against Campbell, so that's big for them to get that opening night W, and that brings a lot of confidence for them playing a high-powered team in LeBray. And it's also on a Saturday night, which is kind of cool, and I think it's at Warren JFK. I'm not too sure. It's at Valley Christian. I think they share a field, so It's something to do with that. But I think LeBray is going to play the same way they did against Lakeview, and that's just try and win that opening kickoff and go right at them. They have had a couple of yardage plays that were over 30 in the first possession, and they're just a high-powered offense. I don't think they're going to change their adjustment or any way that they play against Valley Christian.
Richie, we definitely appreciate you hopping on real quick before we let you go and try to transition to Dana Balish's interview at 1 o'clock. What was the most surprising or the most impressive score from week 1 that you saw?
Most impressive score. Honestly, that Springfield and South Range game, kind of shocked me a little bit. I thought that was going to be a last possession game where it was going to come down to a, game-winning field goal or game-winning touchdown. I was just kind of surprised by that final score.
Yeah, South Range winning 41-21, and they put out the formula. It's a lot harder to execute than it is to just say, here's the paper. But on paper, ball control, couple turnovers, and you can beat Springfield.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. That's exactly what Poland tried to do against Canfield. And, unfortunately, they couldn't score inside the red zone. And that's exactly what South Range did. They
were missing a couple of those turnovers. I think if Poland was able to force a couple, they would have been okay. But,
yeah,
finish drives. That's what it's about.
Exactly. And, that's going back to LeBray, that's what they do so well. When they get an interception, when they get a turnover, they take advantage of it. I mean, Lakeview had first and goal at the 1, and they got a turnover on a fumble. And the game, just completely switched in momentum from that because that was Lakeview's first drive. So, they strive on momentum and they really take advantage of opportunities.
Lakeview struggled last year. Real quick, what kind of things did you still see from the Bulldogs that maybe make them optimistic about this year? Because we've been hearing from not just their program, but other, Coach Armini said it. This is a team that's going to be well improved from last year. You can't watch last year's tape. What kind of things did you see to maybe mirror that and really say that Bulldog Nation has things to look forward to?
Yeah, I think their line actually held their own the majority of that first half. Of course, I know I hopped on a little bit. Ty said that there's going to be some growing pains, some younger guys that have to learn how to play at the varsity level. But, looking in that first and second quarter, the line held their own. And that's a very unexperienced line that they had. They only had 3 seniors coming back, and 2 of them were in the backfield, quarterback and the running back, and then their wide receivers. So, I was impressed with the way that their line held up against LeBray, because when you look at LeBray's line, they had 4 returning starters and they have 3 3-year letter winners on that line. That's a tough task for a young sophomore to handle in that first week, but I think they held their own.
I think every YSN fan wants to know where are you going this week, and where can people hear your voice this week for football?
Well, it's crazy. I won't be doing football this week. We tip off the volleyball in the doubleheader on Friday night for Youngstown State. So I got to be there on Friday. Maybe I'll get a game Saturday, but next week's going to be a big one. I'll return it back to Canfield.
That means that YSN fans need to be able to have another screen open and watch the YSU volleyball game if they want to hear Richie's voice. Doubleheader. Is it Akron?
Yeah, Akron and then St. Francis.
St. Francis. All right.
Yeah.
So we look forward to hearing you again. Thank you so much for hopping on real quick to talk about that LeBray game.
Yeah.
And we appreciate all you do for YSN.
Yep. Appreciate you guys. Have a good one.
Man, is he a good guy, man?
I love having him on, and I'd love to have him on for extended periods. Maybe that's something we could try to do works in. And I mean, I know he's so busy, but if we could work Richie Giuliano even sometime on Running Point from time to time, it's nice to have him, because I mean, his expertise in the teams he covers is par none. I mean, this dude goes ham, goes in depth, in detail, better than almost anyone I've ever seen. So I mean, this is a guy that I think is one special one, I think, in not only the area but in the entire country. And I think we as a company are so lucky to have Richie Giuliano with us.
Real quick, but because we have about 5 minutes before Dana pops on, let's talk about one more score, and let's go to Lowville and Columbiana, which took the longest time to complete of any game on week 1. Man, did it turn into a pass happy frenzy, and Vinny Balone did not disappoint.
Like I said too, Vinny Balone is going to be the show this year, and he proved it yet again. 50-27 win over a pretty good Columbiana team, I might add too. Lowville's offense is going to be explosive. When we talked about Lowville last year being 4-6, I don't know if you necessarily are going to see that same record this year, Anthony. I think Lowville's going to be a lot more competitive, and I think they're going to make some noise over there, and partly just because of Vinny Balone being as effective, I think, as he is at quarterback, and the weapons they've been able to produce there too. This is going to be a scary offensive team this year.
You know what makes me really optimistic about Lowville? They got Columbiana came out with that wing T. They wanted to run the ball, control the ball, keep it away from Vinny Balone. Their defense said no to that. Lowville completely shut down Columbiana's offense run-wise. And they forced Columbiana to move to a 5-out spread offense because at some point you're down 21-27 to nothing. And to Columbiana's credit, they actually fought back and made that a competitive game for a while. So Lowville didn't really adjust to the pass too great to start. But they made the Columbiana go to an offense they didn't want to go to.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing I think with Lowville and going into the season. You're going to see the Rockets do that a lot where they try to take the run game out of the other because they want to get into a shoot-off with the other team pass-wise because they know they're going to bet on their guy more than yours every single time. So they're going to bet on Balone in a shoot-off, and they're going to just try to take the run away from you and say, fine, try to beat us with the pass game because we have a guy that we're going to unleash 50 times on you. He's going to complete over half the passes, and he's going to put yards up on you. So beat us in the pass game, and I think that's huge for Lowville this year, and I think that's going to be partly why it's going to make the Rockets a tough team to beat. Unless you have an effective passing offense, this is going to be a tough team to contend with offensively.
Lowville plays Campbell next week, and that might be a game that doesn't end until 11 o'clock because both those teams love to throw the ball.
They love to throw the ball too, and it's going to come down to pass defense. And it's going to be a big question mark because we saw Lowville really, they adjusted, like you said, to the run defense as well. Let's see what Lowville's pass defense is going to be because that's going to determine how far the Rockets are going to be able to go this season, I think, is if they're going to get into these shootouts, is your pass defense going to be better than their pass defense is going to be the question. I want to see them go into a team like Campbell here where there's going to be some a shootout, what you expect. So let's see what the pass defenses do.
Well, the biggest difference is this time the pass will be on the scouting report. I think the scouting report for Columbiana was pretty much stop the run, stop the run, stop the run. And then all of a sudden they were like, Columbiana said, we have to get into this spread offense or we're never going to have a chance. And, making that adjustment on the fly was kind of hard for Lowville. But I think there's not going to be any adjustments this week. It's going to be on the scouting report. This is what Campbell likes to do.
Yeah, I think so as well, and I think that's going to be huge for Lowville going into the game. I don't know, man. You might be talking about at the end of the season, the biggest improved team from 2020 to 2021. You might be talking about the Lowville Rockets, and I mean that sincerely because you're looking at a team that's 4-6. I think you're talking about a team right now, and I know it's week 1. You don't want to get too ahead of yourselves, but right now, looking at what they have, and I mean, barring injuries, the offensive weapons that they have, if the defense can come around a little bit, I think this is easily a playoff team this year.
We'll see. It'll definitely be an interesting season for Lowville. We'll take a really quick break. On the other end, we'll have TV 21 sports director Dana Ballish as he joins us today like he does every Monday. Where's that? There it is. Lost the mouse for a little quick. So we'll take a quick break and Dana Ballish on the other end. Don't go anywhere on Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
Jimmy Sutton here, director of Isle, Purple Cat, and Golden String. We are happy to support YSN and two of my favorite people, Scotty Mincher and Super Dave O'Malley. We are an agency that provides services for adults with disabilities. We infuse humor, passion, and joy into their lives. If you know of any folks with disabilities that need our assistance, please contact us.
Your teams work hard and give it all they've got. Well, so does ours, because 21 Sports and YSN give you extra effort when covering local sports. 21 Sports and YSN, winning coverage of our Valley's teams.
Planning a project around your home or rental property? Trust the electrical service to the local experts with 62 years of serving the Mahoning Valley. Joe Dickey Electric is your local go-to source for responsive, reliable residential electrical work. From everyday maintenance and repairs to new installations, electrical upgrades, and safety inspections, no job is too big or too small. Call Joe Dickey Electric today, 800-549-3976, or visit DickeyElectric.com. That's DickeyElectric.com.
Dealing with Medicare can be confusing and overwhelming. That's why here at Myers Family Insurance, we do our best to give you honest and caring answers to all of your questions. Family, like Medicare, isn't always perfect, but when you put others first, the results can be amazing.
Every customer has a story, and at Greenwood Chevrolet, we are committed to making sure it ends with you in the right vehicle. I get to be part of somebody's adventure, whether it's buying a car for the first time, helping them get approved, or finding the perfect car for their budget. I'm proud that people trust me with their finances. They trust me to take care of them, and they trust me with their story. I'm Tracy, and I'm ready to go the extra mile for you, only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
We are there in your community. Small business owners, mechanics, police officers, homemakers, and we are there serving our nation in the Air Force Reserve. When medical emergencies arise, in cybersecurity, when natural disasters happen, we are there in space. We are Reserve Citizen Airmen, and we are there with over 180 different jobs to serve your country. Air Force Reserve.
For a great vehicle and a great experience, come to Boardman Mitsubishi today. As always, our full lineup of Mitsubishi models comes with a standard 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. Boardman Mitsubishi, your hometown Mitsubishi dealer since 1999.
My guy keeps it 100% of the time. He wants all 100, won't settle for 99. And it's more than stats, because there's people in those numbers. And I was one of the lost sheep. I'm so glad he cares for all 100. I'm 100% safe, 100% free, 100% love. I can be 100% me. He gave all 100 when they put him up on that tree. That's 100% passion for 100% free. So if I play in front of 100, or if I play in front of 2, there's an audience of 1 getting 100% of what I can do.
Welcome back to Monday edition of Running Point on YSNLive.com, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Struggled to get a hold of Dana Balish during the break. He's obviously a busy man, and he might be dealing with that breaking news that we broke early in the show that East Palestine and Wyndham next week is canceled. But we'll definitely try to see if we can get a hold of him as the show goes on. But with that being
yeah, that's definitely a big question too to be asked too, and there's definitely a lot of questions to be asked with Dana Balish, but we'll get him eventually, and we're excited to talk to him. But like you said, Anthony, that's some big news too in this area, and definitely one I definitely think our friends over at WFMJ are definitely on the scoop right now, trying to get a story out about it.
Yeah, I don't want to be in the newsroom when news like that breaks. It's got to be very chaotic, almost like an audible call here on a Friday night.
Yeah. I mean, to relate us back and forth, yeah, probably. It's probably pretty similar. But yeah, we know our friends over at WFMJ doing the best to get the best coverage in the area news-wise. So you gotta respect it too. You know, they're trying to get those stories out, I'm sure, working very hard over there.
Let's talk about this Girard and Streetsboro game. Oh my gosh. Did it just offenses everywhere?
So the funny story, because I have a story before we get into this. When I'm doing this game, I have audible call on like a little tablet that I'm playing right there while I'm calling my game. So I'll glare over and I'll see some other scores on what's going on in the area. I've seen this Streetsboro Girard game I saw like 4 different games is what I felt like, 4 different scores, and I'm like,
Right.
what is happening over there in Girard with this game with these Rockets? Because like I see it and Girard's up big, and then it's tied, and then all of a sudden it was like 35-35. I look over 10 minutes later, it's 70-35. I'm like, what happened in the span of these few minutes? I don't even know how this whole night unfolded, but it must have been a wild night over there in Girard. So much offense, 105 combined points.
You know what? I'll say this. I thought at halftime we might be beating Ursuline versus Harvey in total points because I think it was 28-20 at half, and it had no chance of slowing down. And then unfortunately for Girard, their offense hit a brick wall, but Streetsboro's offense kept going.
I feel like at one point Girard was up like 28 or 21-7 too, like up a pretty decent amount on Streetsboro.
Yep, Streetsboro came back and went, took the 35-28 lead in the third. Girard tied it up, and then Streetsboro scored. What is that? 34 unanswered points to end the game, 71-35. Streetsboro wins. Tough luck for Girard, but one thing that we did say, and we said this last week, their offense found a rhythm at the end of last season, and they looked to they continue that rhythm. Del Garbino wasn't a quarterback anymore. New quarterback steps in. Their offense looked like it was running pretty well. Obviously, defense, different story, but their offense looked like they still had that rhythm.
Well, they were going up against one of the best offenses in Division III, too, in Streetsboro. And we know how good Streetsboro was. And they're one of those teams that we expect to, again, contend with Canfield in D3. And they might be one of those teams that stands in Canfield's way. So you might see another rematch of that Canfield-Streetsboro matchup from last year. But nevertheless, this is a team that is going to be very good on offense. And you know what? I'd say Girard, we want to talk about taking a step up. You were hanging with one of the best teams in Division III for 3 quarters. And if there's something to hang your hat on, you can hang your hat on that. I mean, if there's one thing to improve on, look on finishing games now. Look on making that fourth quarter strong and finishing games strong. It's hard to get your athletes and get your guys to push for that extra quarter because you know they're tired come the third quarter. But if you can get those guys and a lot of those younger guys that, again, we're saying getting that varsity experience, getting them to get that drive and push through the fourth quarter, I think Girard will be fine and you'll be able to see them turn these losses into victories. And of course, the defense needs improvements and you're going to be looking to improve on certain aspects, but hey, they were also going up against a very dynamic offense and one of the best, I think, in the area and in the state. So no, not really a whole lot of shame too. And besides, it's week 1. So look ahead to, there's a lot of football left. And I think there's a lot of positives for Girard to take away from this game.
You know, Brian needed oxygen after that game. I'll tell you that. He was talking a lot and he said touchdown a lot. So we loved it in the audible call. We loved that game. We loved the touchdown count that it gave us. We had 66 total touchdowns in week 1 of the audible call. So that's how many, the final number for that. If you were wondering, we like to keep track. 66 total touchdowns were caught live on the audible call Friday night.
Do we have our record for a single night? What is our record for a single night?
We shattered our record last season. I think it was well into the hundreds. Unfortunately, Anthony last year wasn't smart enough to keep that paper from that audible call.
So, that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. But we should keep a running thing on
Anthony
that. And you got to remember, though, too, there was a lot of games on Thursday. So touchdowns that could have been incorporated, Bishop, Hartley, and Ursuline. There was a lot of touchdowns there.
You know what? It was week 1. It was week 1 for everybody. We were getting the flow of things. Everyone here was getting the flow of things.
It's hard to be sharp on that because I've been in that newsroom as well for our newsroom, our makeshift newsroom there with the audible call when we do it, and that is it's a pressure cooker, and most of the time you'll have like 5-6 things and you're watching, you're looking to see who's about to break away. It's hard to get sharp on that too.
There were multiple big plays which are harder to get. You know, a big play, you got to be really quick. Hey, this is you know, we had some new faces back here too, and they did a great job, but it's still a new thing, you know. So I think 66, with all that considering, very good number to land on. But you know what? One of the things that makes YSN great, we're never satisfied. We're going to do better next week. We're going to aim to always improve, and we are actively working on things right now to make that audible call run smoother. So Even though it was a success, most people would say, okay, that worked. Let's lean back and relax. Not here at YSN. We are ready for week 2 of Audible Call, and we promise it'll be even better.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. It's revolutionary in the high school football scene, not only in the area but in the entire country. Nobody else doing what we do here at YSN at the high school level for football. And I mean the Audible Call, like DJ will tell you too, one of the greatest ideas I think that was birthed from YSN, and I think one of the most revolutionary ideas in high school sports in the area.
Let's continue our recaps. United looked like they haven't missed a beat from last year either. I mean, everyone was saying, oh, you lost Keaton Baker, you lost Brutus Ogilvy, it's going to be tough. And United said, not so fast, my friend. They pulled the lead Corso 41-7 over Minerva. United gets the opening week win.
Yeah, and I think United is firmly saying we're going to be at the tops of the division again. Don't you worry. And I mean, just proving it yet again. I think United's going to be fine. Like I said, you lost a little bit in Keaton Baker and Brutus Ogilvy, but what I said, I believe, is you are returning more than what you lost, and I think that proved and it bode well for United in this game. And that's exactly what you saw, is what they returned, and the experience and that jump you saw from those younger players from year 1 to year 2, year 2 to year 3 is now really showing, I think, in United. And I think out of all the teams, this is one of the teams I think that played the most complete game of football, both on the offensive, defensive, and special team side of it.
And they were a positive note for an EOAC that had a very rough week. They had a couple of games get canceled because of COVID-19. East Palestine lost, Columbiana lost. So it was a very rough week for the EOAC, but United said, hey, we're here, we're good. Southern won, so Southern got the win in the EOAC. But for the most part, the EOAC had a pretty tough week, and it's not ending with East Palestine's game getting canceled this Friday night. So United is a bright spot in that conference, and they'll look to continue that in week 2.
Yeah, and I mean, to even go back to that game, I mean, I think United is going to be fine this year. I think they have a lot of successful players and pieces at each position, both offensively, defensively, and special teams. So I think this is a United team that is going to be on all facets going to be very tough to beat, because they're just really solid and good on every area of the field. And to go to that Southern and Edison game, Anthony, if we want to transition right to that, boom. I mean, we talk about that. That's a solid win too against an Edison team, 34-21 for Southern, and I think that's huge to go up against a Buckeye 8, I think, opponent. I believe Edison, I believe, in the Buckeye 8. Yeah. Yep. And going up against a Buckeye 8 opponent, out of conference opponent, and getting a win, pretty effective for Southern too. And I think that's a huge win for the Indians to start the season, to show that, hey, we're still we could be at the tops of the EOAC as well. And saying, United, you're not the only one contending up there.
Yeah, and they were 2 out of the 3 that finished at the top last season. They both plant their flag at the top in week 1 with wins in the EOAC conference. You go down through our list. Middle Ridge had a tough night. They opened that new turf field. Pymatuning Valley came in. I think everyone kind of got a glimpse into how big Pymatuning Valley is as far as their size, especially on the lines. They ran the ball extremely well against Middle Ridge and made things tough for the Rams.
Yeah, but you know what? I give the Rams all the credit in the world. They hung in there with Pie Valley, and Pie Valley usually one of the better teams in high school football. 22-7, so not terrible. And you know what? Defensively, you didn't even do bad. You held them to 22 points. That's low by Pie Valley standards. I think Mineral Ridge did a very effective job defensively, and I mean, trying to get offense going too. Pie Valley, we know, usually has a very good defense as well, and especially trying to run the ball against Pie Valley, it can become a challenge. But I think Mineral Ridge will just look, if they can get their offense going, and I think they will, they'll get into that flow. I was really impressed with the Rams defense over the weekend, though. Yeah,
we said it before. No one needs to panic after week 1. You know, there weren't glaring holes in Mineral Ridge that said, oh, man, this is a problem. Unfixable. You know, their coaching staff's going to watch the tape, see things they can fix. They did a lot of positive things. Their defense played pretty well. They'll be okay when you look at Mineral Ridge Rams. I have to apologize because there was another bright spot in the OAC, and it was one of the ones that a team that really struggled last year, man, did they come into week 1 with authority. Valley Christian 36-6 over Campbell Memorial.
Yeah, mentioned it too when I was talking with Richie. I mean, Valley Christian is that team that I picked them, I believe, to win this week because I thought Valley Christian was going to be that improved team, and I saw that in athletes too. We saw that in the basketball program when we talk about how success breeds success, and Valley Christian having a pretty successful, I'd say, basketball season. But those athletes too that were on the basketball team, a lot of them play both. So I think this football team, and I think Valley Christian has a good congregation of athletes over there, and I think they're going to be solid in the EOAC, and expect Valley Christian to be, I think, competitive in a lot of these games. And when you have the Southerns on the schedule and you have the Uniteds, I might be circling this game now going forward because I think they might be competitive.
By the way, for those people wondering, Ty did win week 1 by 1 game. He went 17-11. Anthony went 16-12. So I don't know why I listed myself in the third person, but
yeah,
I went 16-12. So Ty wins week 1 by 1 game, and I don't even know I haven't broken down what the difference was.
We got to put the running scoreboard all year long. So you got to have the running scoreboard 17.
You know what? We'll just have at the end of the season, we'll have the total record, and whoever comes out on top. You win week 1, but it is a long football season, my friend.
Yes, it was. There was a couple of games that we split on, and there was a couple that were real close and a couple that were real shockers. But this is the one that, I firmly believe that Valley Christian was going to be a very big step up from last year. And I think
this is a shock. Valley Christian won 2 games last year. I did not expect them to run away with this one.
Yeah. And I mean, this is a game that I think Valley Christian, these younger guys are really stepping up too. And they really showed improvements from last year to this year. And I'm excited for week 2. Can they sustain it is the biggest question. And I'm excited to see week 2. We know they have a very tough matchup with a LeBray team that's going to be able to match that offense that Valley Christian was able to put up. Let's see what this matchup is, because if Valley comes over top of LeBray, they're going to raise a lot of eyebrows, I think, in the area.
Let's talk a little bit about Newton Falls. Man, another team that struggled last year made a statement, 35-8 over Waterloo, and the Tigers looked pretty impressive.
Yeah, Newton Falls really did take a big step up from last year. And like I said, they were very young, it seemed like, last year. And it's a lot of those younger guys that were coming into their sophomore, junior years, again, that were playing a lot better, I think, from year 1 to year 2, year 2 to year 3. So I think Newton Falls too, going up against a Waterloo team that again, they were coming in, they're trying to rebuild that program and build that one up a little bit as well. And I think they're doing a good job as well. But I think Newton Falls is a little bit further ahead in the program that they're building. And I think you just saw the result of that night.
Yeah, and Waterloo, I said it, and this is why I think I picked them actually. I like the energy down there still. I still like the energy they're bringing into the season. They were never, we were able to watch the game on YouTube, and the link was on the Newton Falls page, by the way. You never saw Waterloo kind of lose energy in the game, even though they were down, 35-8, whatever it was. They were still going hard, which is something that you didn't see a lot last year. I felt like the energy was just renewed this year. And the team looked a little bit more bought in, which is going to be a positive for them going forward. It's a long season. And if they can get a couple of wins under their belt, then they'll feel really good about themselves going forward as a program.
Yeah, I think there's some favorable matchups for Waterloo to get a couple of wins under their belt as well. And I think there's a room for this program to build upon this year. And I think you're going to see those improvements from Waterloo and be able to lay those bricks down and lay that foundation down to build a successful program over there in Atwater, Ohio.
And boy, did Struthers look impressive as we move on to the next game. They went to St. Thomas Aquinas, and they just dominated this game 46-12. Yeah, 46-12. Struthers gets to win. Do you think this is kind of a news flash to the rest of the NE8? I mean, everyone's talking South Range. Obviously, they were the big win. Everyone's talking Poland, who lost. Everyone's talking, Hubbard, who obviously looked very impressive. Struthers is over here saying, hello.
And Struthers is one of those teams that, again, I said, because I thought of the success of that basketball season and how successful they were, that it was going to translate over. And I mean, this might be the first step in making it against a usually solid St. Thomas Aquinas team, going up there and making a statement victory, 46-12. I mean, that's huge for the Wildcats to start their season. Started off 1-0 because you're going to have a very tough NE8 schedule. So it's huge to win those non-conference games and get yourself a good record before going into the NE8. So this is a big win for the Wildcats week 1.
One of, I believe, 5 NE8 teams that got a win. We count Jefferson. Yeah, 5. Poland, Niles, and Lakeview lost. So one of 5 NE8 teams that they got a win. And you look at the NE8, and Struthers might have a say in that conversation this year.
They very well might too. And we talk about the Polands, we talk about the South Ranges, but I mean, Struthers has kind of been flying under the radar this past year, and I kind of think they like that too. And everyone talking about the basketball over there, not many people talking about the football, and everyone actually thought the football, I think, was going to take a step back from last year. But I don't think that's the case at all over there in Wildcat country. I think the Struthers Wildcats are going to be going strong, and I think this year is going to be a very big step up from last year. Honestly, I think you're going to see improvements over there in the Wildcats.
And we talk about the NE8 and a team that also looked very impressive, might be a lot improved from last year. Jefferson, boy, did they give a whooping to Grand Valley, 48-8, and their pass game looked very impressive. We talked about it in their preview. They're going to be a team that we're high on. Their pass game is going to be really good, hard to stop. Their receiving core is all returning. Their quarterback's returning. Jefferson sent a statement. They're going to be throwing the ball pretty well this year.
And yeah, Jefferson honestly is going to be one of those teams, like we talked about, has that a little bit extra advantage because they live all the way up there and they got to make people travel up to Jefferson. So they got that advantage already. But on top of the fact that they have a home field advantage that feels like such a long drive for everybody else, and it's not really long for them because they're used to the driving. But yeah, this is a team that, like you said, Anthony, has a lot of young players that they return, and a lot of the players that were very solid for them last year and the big playmakers last year also return. This is with a new coach at the helm too, and a new mindset to kind of build these pieces and mold them all together. I think Jefferson is made for a successful season, and they might be a tough opponent to beat in the NE8, especially with a new coaching scheme and a new mindset up there. This might be a Jefferson team that they might have found this offense that we haven't seen from them, and unlocked different keys and X factors in the offense that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah, and you look at Grant Hitchcock for Jefferson, who is their quarterback, and he threw the ball well. I mean, their first touchdown was their third touchdown was a 45-yard pass down the sideline for a touchdown. He continued to light up the scoreboard, and he ran pretty well too. Hitchcock might be one of those undersung heroes in the NE8.
He very well could be, man. And you know what? I think a lot of those quarterbacks, they like that too. They like when nobody's talking about them at the beginning of the season, and it gives them a lot of reason to make us talk about them at the end of the season. And you know what? Hitchcock's a pretty cool name for a quarterback too. I kind of like it with the ties into Alfred Hitchcock. You could definitely do that. The master of suspense was Alfred Hitchcock. So you could definitely do something with the master of suspense over there in Jefferson. I like the nickname possibilities. Hey, make us keep saying your name over there.
Hitchcock goes psycho.
Yeah, I like it. You can. There's a lot of story up there.
By the way, the fireworks in Firestone did not disappoint. When that was one of the lines we wrote last week, and fireworks at Firestone, Vinny Balone obliged with that one.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a fun game.
I think we should make this a trend where every week we decide, like, we pick like 5 games and come up with headlines and see on Monday how correct they were.
We just come up with it. Well, we could too.
I mean, hey, it worked last week. It wasn't even a planned segment. I mean,
I mean, especially if you could just go. I mean, if you can do something neutral, like if you could incorporate the stadium name into it,
Right.
then you have a better chance at getting it right
It's
either
really
way.
hard because a lot of these stadiums aren't really named anything unless it's like a name sponsor. But we'll you know what? Well, on Running Point, we'll put that on our shoulders, and we will venture forward. Disappointing game for Beaver Local, by the way. They led early against Indian Valley, and then Indian Valley just put on the gas burners and beat Beaver Local 37-26 to open the season. A lot of positives for Beaver Local, but you gotta keep leads when you get them.
Yeah, and you know what? I haven't seen a whole lot of film on Beaver Local, but I've gone off of what I read on the story too by Mikey McKenzie and what he's done over there, and he's gonna be your go-to guy for anything Beaver Local. He'll be able to tell you everything with Beaver Local this season. But from what it seemed like, yeah, Beaver Local just kind of they couldn't finish the game, is what it seemed like. They had it. And it's kind of haunting them from last year too. And you hope that they can finally get it corrected, because Beaver Local, again, in some key games, again, they won the game for 3 quarters, and the fourth quarter showed up, and it's like late in the third quarter, and then starting in the fourth quarter, it just shows up, and it's like they can't get a grip on it, and they lose all momentum. And it's like they want Beaver Local to hold that momentum all 4 quarters and finish games and come away with victories. Unfortunate they were unable to do so this game, but I think Beaver Local is still going to be one of those teams that's going to be competitive within the Buckeye 8. And on the bright side, I guess if you are Beaver Local and you're looking forward, both East Liverpool and Edison lost as well. So I mean, you have
always a plus in Beaver Local when you can see East Liverpool.
yeah. So, I mean, you didn't lose any ground on either of them. So, I guess that's one positive, too, for Beaver Local looking into this.
They lost week 1 last year and still had a pretty productive season. So, Beaver Local, not a stranger to having to bounce back from a week 1 loss. They had less time to do it last year because they had a really shortened regular season. So, they have plenty of time to rebound, and we expect that they will.
I think they will. I think the Beavers will be just fine over there. It just comes down to it. These guys just need to learn how to finish games, and maybe this is a reminder for them. And it's something that Coach McKenzie is going to be able to build upon with them and say, this is how we finish games. This is why we need to finish games, and we need to stay focused all 4 quarters.
You know, we talked about disappointing. We talked about how tough Louisville's schedule is. And they were proving that. Barberton came into Louisville, and they won 26-7. But Barberton, a strong Division II program, in the playoffs a lot, making deep playoff runs a lot in their history. And, it doesn't get any easier for Louisville. They have to bounce back from this 26-7 loss.
And you know what, Louisville, they schedule up for a reason, because they like to get punched in the mouth occasionally. And I think they like wearing the scars on their back to show their opponents, hey, we've been through the gauntlet. We're not afraid of you. And this is exactly why. They're going to have games like this. And Louisville, not that they don't care, but it's games that they expect to have, that they're going to have throughout the season. They know there's going to be a couple where a team is going to punch them in the mouth, but they know that they need that to get them ready for playoffs. And that's why Louisville is a perennial powerhouse in the playoffs, and why they make deep runs year to year, because they schedule up and they play the toughest.
You look at this schedule, they'll have plenty of chances to redeem themselves, because there are a lot of big names on that schedule. A lot of opportunities to get big-time wins over big programs.
And you know what? I didn't think Louisville played that bad against Barberton either. I think defensively, they hung with Barberton fairly well. I think it's just offensively, just trying to get that rhythm. And Barberton did a really good job containing Louisville offensively. And I think there were some turnovers, too, incorporated on Louisville's end. So I think you clean those up, too, and play a little bit sharper on offense. I think Louisville will be just fine. But you got to remember, they were going up against Barberton. Barberton's one of the better defenses, I think, in the state. So, it was a little bit of a struggle, but I don't expect that week to week from Louisville at all.
The magic was there for Barberton. It was also there for Windham, who got a big week 1 win over Lisbon, 24-13. And Windham's a team that looks like they're in the right spot as a program.
I picked Wyndham too because I said, debut game on YSN. They're gonna come out strong, and boy, did they ever! Big week 1 victory over Lisbon. Start off the season 1-0, and yeah, like DJ said though, it is unfortunate that this week 2 game is canceled, and we hope the best for both programs that they're able to figure it out for the season because I'm excited for both teams, but I'm really excited for this Bombers team. After that week 1 victory, I think they're going to be drastically improved from last year, and I think they just went out and proved it. Starting off the season, winning record over there now. So Wyndham has a lot to look forward to, I think, for the rest of the season. And this is definitely a good brick to lay on the foundation of turning that program around over there.
Yeah, this is one of the games that we got a really good stat breakdown from, a good game summary from this game. So we appreciate that. First downs, Wyndham won 19 to 10. You look at rushing yards. Lisbon had 54. Wyndham had 306. That might be like the number you circle right there. I mean, 306 rushing yards. You beat them 306 to 54. Lisbon the advantage in passing yards, but when you have 306 rushing yards, who really cares? I mean,
yeah, Wyndham definitely likes throwing their bombs on the ground rather than the aerial and aerial strikes, the artillery strikes for their bombs. They definitely like ground bombs better. 306 rushing yards. That's impressive, too, for the Bombers team. But you know what? That's their style of football, too, it feels like over there. And I feel like, Wyndham, this is nothing new to them. This is their style. This is the type of football they usually play. So you'll probably expect to see a lot of that going forward this season.
Wyndham won the time of possession battle 31-47 to 22 minutes to Lisbon. You look at who ran the ball the most for Wyndham. It was Burt Jones, 93 yards on 8 carries. Mickey Jones had 12 carries for 78 yards. And then James Hood had 16 carries for 66 yards. And then KSI had 9 carries for 61 yards. So a lot of people that can beat you on the ground for Wyndham.
Yeah, Chase I also with an interception on the defensive end as well. Part of that defensive performance that was very solid for Wyndham week 1. And Chase I might be that guy to watch out for that's going to be effective on the offensive and
keep
defensive.
An eye on?
Yeah, you got to keep an eye on he's the one, I believe, that has family members that's in the UFC. His dad played Major League Baseball. So, I mean, success. And I think his dad is the coach, too, Jack coach. So, I mean, there's success in that family.
We got to get Jack I on the show. We got to get Jack I on the show.
We have to, too. I want to talk to him.
Brandon, if you're listening and you can get into Coach I's ear, let us know. We would love to get him on the show.
If we could get Jack I on the show as a welcoming thing for Wyndham too, especially just to talk with him about the program with this week 2 up in the air and not really having a game scheduled, just to give Wyndham something to watch or something to look forward to this week.
I'd love to talk to him about the mental state of the team right now and what Wyndham's going through. I mean, obviously with week 2 being canceled and they had such an impressive week 1, we would love to have him on the show. So it's an open invite. Actually, an open invite to everybody. If you're watching out there and you're a coach or a coach that you want to see on, help us get into contact with him. We'd love to have him on.
Yeah, we should talk to East Palestine
coach,
too.
Player, anybody. I mean, DJ touches that. Like we don't want to take away DJ's interviews. And
that's right. I forgot he is. I forgot he's on the special list. He's on the no-fly list for us. I know that. I forgot. There's like a 5-person no-fly list for us, and that's one of them.
We already used our get-out-of-jail-free card last week when we had Yegley on. So
I know. Yeah, I know. DJ was pretty mad that we had him on. Yegley's usually on the no-fly list for us, but he was able to get into restricted airlines for one
restricted air zone,
for one day. We got a get-out-of-jail-free card.
Let's talk a little bit about, as we move on with our recaps, we talked about Jefferson. We talked about Louisville. Let's go to – we have to talk about East. East with that big win over Shaw, 12-8. And this is what I picked. East defense looking very impressive, holding Cleveland Shaw to just 8 points.
That was very impressive, and one I was not expecting. This was the biggest shocker for me of the night personally. And you know what? I'm glad that the Golden Bears did shock me. I'm glad if I'm wrong about anything, I'm glad I'm wrong about this game. And I'm glad East. But you know what? I was looking at Shaw. I was looking at the fact that Shaw knocked out a very good Beaver local team out of the playoffs last year. I was expecting some of the same success. And you know what? They did bring back a decent amount of what they had last year. But that didn't matter to East, and East showing that they are a heavily improved program from
Is that a statement for East, considering how all the things you just said about Cleveland Shaw? And
I think for a week 1 victory too, it definitely sets East on the right tone. New coach over there, I believe, as well. So I think this is definitely a good week 1 victory for East.
This wasn't a pushover opponent, cupcake opponent.
No.
This was a solid playoff team, returning a lot of players. And this is big win for East.
Team from Cleveland too. I mean, these are the teams we talk about all the time. The teams that's Big Brother up there over there in Cleveland that always is the one that's in the state title contention. But no, we're going up there and they're coming down here rather. And
I don't know if Cleveland is ever recalled to as the Big Brother of any situation.
And high school football ranks they are. I'm not saying professional ranks, buddy. We didn't say Cleveland was professionally Big Brother. They got to be Big Brother in anything. They're Big Brother in high school football, or they think they are. But no, not at all. I think the Youngstown area is starting to show these Cleveland teams that we're competitive down here as well.
Got a couple of more Cleveland teams on the schedule as the season goes on too. I think Cleveland Central Catholic is going to play JFK, if I'm not mistaken, later on in the year, and we have a couple of more Cleveland teams that will be on our team schedule. So more opportunities to kind of stick it to, I guess, Big Brother now in high school football.
Yeah, I guess so. Going forward, I think this is a big win though for East for week 1, and I think it's huge too in Steel Valley play. Because you're looking at the Steel Valley now. It's them and Ursuline now, Anthony, at the top for week 1. Mooney losing to Boardman and Cheney losing to Fitch. So this is big for East to not have Ursuline just solely take a top of the Steel Valley Conference. And look at now. East is on right there sharing it with Ursuline. That's a big week 1 win for the Golden Bears.
And I believe we've hit every Friday night game. So let's move on to Jackson Milton, who made the road trip all the way to Toledo and came back home with a victory, made the trip worth it. Jackson Milton winning that game over Hilltop 29-12. So a big win for Jackson Milton making the trip to the Glass Bowl.
Yeah, and you know what? Jackson Milton, too, another good week 1 win to start off their season, as they had a season of ups and downs last year, able to beat Western Reserve and be at the tops for a while. But I think they have a sour taste in their mouth for how the season ended, and they want to come back and be successful this season again. You saw what they've been able to do. Their baseball team was at the tops, and their basketball team was effective, too. It always seems like they run into Western Reserve, and Western Reserve knocked them out baseball, but they knocked Western Reserve out football and basketball in the playoffs this year. So that's going to be a fun matchup to watch going forward for Jackson Milton. But certainly this is a big week 1 victory for Jackson Milton just to stay at tops and stay competitive within their division.
This game was a little closer than I expected, though, especially throughout the. I mean, like you look at Hilltop, and last year they were outscored. I think it was like 320-50 or something outrageous like that. Hilltop showed a lot of grit and kept this game close for quite a bit.
They were definitely an improved team from last year. I think you could see that, as Hilltop was a lot more effective on defense and a lot quicker. And then you could definitely see the football IQ was definitely improved from last year to this year.
We can add the University of Toledo to our check mark list of places we've broadcasted games on YSN, which includes, not limited to, PNC Park, Rubber Duck Stadium, a lot of big names. And we can add University of Toledo to that list as Jackson Milton gets to win into the Glass Bowl over Hilltop 29-12. Garfield rounding out the week because of a slight COVID situation. They did not get canceled, but they did get postponed from Friday to Sunday. And the wait did not hurt them at all. Garfield just ran away with this game, 49-6 over Cardinal. Garfield gets a big win. They look like they're just picking up where they left off last year.
Garfield's coming in saying we want the MVAC crown year number 1, and they ain't afraid to go in there and take it. And a big week 1 statement victory for Garfield to get all the eyes on him, if the eyes weren't on them already, to get all the eyes on him from all the other teams in the MVAC division, and get them to look at Garfield and say, hey, this is a new team that's in town, and they're pretty darn good.
Oh, are they pretty darn good? They're mighty impressive. You look at some of the standout players from that game, and you can't talk about anyone without first bringing up. Let me get wait. Had it, lost it. Hold on. Keep talking, Ty.
All right. Okay. But no, looking forward though, too, after we get through these football previews, it looks like we're going to go swinging in, I think, right into the finishing our volleyball previews. So I think we got 8 more teams on the docket for that before we're completely finished with volleyball previews. Of course, we know volleyball started over the weekend, but we have volleyball as well, starting majority for teams tonight. I myself am going to be at Struthers calling the Wildcats and Harding game. So
Dema was the big guy for Garfield, so I apologize for that. Dema was the big name for Garfield, scoring their first several touchdowns and putting that game under wraps.
And I think, you know what, I think he was actually one guy I was talking about too. I think if I have my paper here, I think I have that name highlighted. That sounds like one of the guys I talked about coming into this year that's going to be effective for Garfield. And, you know, still trying to get a lot of information on Garfield coming into YSN this year as well, this football season. So we're trying to get as much information as we can on them and get more of a book on them, just like everyone else is trying to get a book on them as well.
As Ty said, during that segment where he had to kind of pick me up for a little bit. It's a Monday. We are going to be right back. We're going to recap a couple of volleyball games that did happen over the weekend, a couple of soccer games that did happen over the weekend. And then we got to jump right into our Division 4 volleyball previews and finish those up. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back on Running Point, YSN Live, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
Custom order your Ford your way at Tri-State Ford. Choose the available features that fit your life and style, from the all-new 2022 Ford Maverick F-150 Lightning through the entire Ford lineup. Pick your color, trim level, and options. Plus, get the Tri-State Ford Advantage, including a 10-year, 200,000-mile warranty and more. Start your custom order today. Stop in or visit tristateford.net. Customer focused, community driven. Tri-State Ford, East Liverpool.
Quality, customer service, and integrity. Those are the 4 words that have driven our success since 1957 at Joe Dickey Electric.
Joe Dickey Electric is one Mahoning Valley landmark business that stays current with the requirements of our customers. Family owned and managed, we are an electrical contractor and energy solutions provider. Every member of our team adds to his or her skill set through ongoing training. Residential, commercial, industrial, automotive, and more. We keep ahead of the needs of our customers with a fleet of more than 50 vehicles and 24/7 emergency service, so you're never left in the dark.
Hi everyone, this is DJ Yoakley with Your Sports Network. We appreciate your support of YSN and welcome you to the YSN family. Our broadcast streams are brought to you live at no cost to you by sponsors that are local to this community. Without the vision and generosity of our sponsors and partners, we would not be able to bring this game to you today. So please support the great businesses and leaders that are making this game possible. And if you're a business in need of great advertising and sponsorship opportunities, feel free to head over to our site for more information on the right fit for you. We are local, we are loyal, and we are live. We are YSN.
Ah, the details. Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods is one fine ride. Perfect cornering, superb handling, sporty and stylish, power to spare, plus awesome mileage. Yeah, jaw-droppingly beautiful lines and well appointed with luxurious trim. Put more oomph in your life and start beholding the molding. Find your home's fine hardwood at BairdBrothers.com.
Hi, this is Tommy Clem, owner of WRS Insurance Solutions.
WRS Insurance Solutions is a local independent agency that specializes in life, Medicare, long-term care, and disability products. Call us at 330-953-3722 or visit us at wrsinsuranceSolutions.com to learn more.
Good luck to all the student athletes in the Valley.
News doesn't stop after the sun goes down. Sometimes you just have to hustle to get it. At 21 News, no matter how far it is, no matter what it takes to get there, we're working to bring you the best stories and the freshest content at 11 p.m. with the context and clarity that makes it worth staying up for, no matter what time it is. 21 News at 11 with me, Aaron Simonek, and Derek Steyer.
21 News at 11, news that's worth your time.
It's a new year at Acura of Boardman and Boardman Mitsubishi with huge savings on over 350 fully inspected vehicles. We have cars, trucks, SUVs, minivans, and work vehicles. We don't have it, our team will find it. We aim for 100% credit approval with payments as low as $99 per month. And as always, we'll pay top dollar for your trade. For a great vehicle and a great experience, come see why everyone is stopping by at Acura of Boardman and Boardman Mitsubishi.
Hi, I'm Colin Chupa. And I'm Kelsey Clem from K-Squared Marketing. Our boutique marketing firm specializes in media planning and buying, public relations, event marketing strategies, and strategic sponsorships. We can integrate our services with your existing game plan, or we can be your entire marketing team. Your goals, our game plan. Let's win together. Call K-Squared Marketing at 330-623-2730 or visit ksquared.marketing to learn more.
Welcome back to the Monday edition of Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Want to remind everyone, since you heard from Boardman Mitsubishi in that commercial break, that they are the sponsors of the comment section, and you can comment on whatever platform you're watching on, whether it be Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch, and we will see it, pop it up, and talk about it. We'd love to hear from you. Also, the fan line is open, 330-886-0813. And that's where you can reach us to talk to us over the phone. As we venture into a couple of recaps of some other sports that happened over the weekend, volleyball did get started for several teams, as we saw Crestview on YSN sweep Lakeview. And you look at this tie, and two teams that were so dominant for the last several years, Crestview planted that flag, and they get a dominating 3-0 win over Lakeview.
Yeah, and it's a big week one win for, or big game one win, I should say. Talking football so much, I'm thinking it's a whole week. Big game one victory for Crestview. I mean, 3-0 over a very good Lakeview team. I mean, that's a statement, I think, for Crestview to start the season.
Biggest story for Crestview, in my opinion, was Abby Emsch, the freshman. You know, everyone knows the Emsch family. Molly was a senior last year. Emily, before her, went on to play for Youngstown State. And Abby Emsch is taller than both of them, and looked like she has the opportunity to develop into a player that we might be talking about being better than her sisters, which should scare everybody that has to play Crestview, especially the teams in the MVAC.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's definitely one you don't want to you want to try to avoid if you can, because this looks to be one of the powerhouses for sure going forward.
And you look at the stat breakdown of this game as I'm pulling it up as we speak. Lucy Montgomery, who everyone expected to be a key member of the Rebels team, 8 kills, 18 assists for her. You look at Grace Auer, who is just as impressive, 9 kills, 14 assists, 1 ace, and 15 digs. You look at Abby Emsch, she had 8 kills, 5 blocks as a freshman. 2 aces, so she made a really good debut. Shelby Rambo also with 8 kills. So a very well-balanced offense for Crestview. They didn't look like mid-season form sharpness. They were still struggling to get in the system every now and then. But when they did, Shelby Rambo and Lucy Montgomery both had some monster hits that put balls away really quick, and they looked impressive. For Lakeview, Tara Lytle had a match-high 13 kills. You look at Maggie Pavlansky, She had 18 assists on the day. Lytle also had 3 aces. Maddie Bayes led the Bulldogs in digs with 10. And as the blocking category, Reagan Price led them with 3. 25-22, 25-22, 25-22 were the scores. So it was a 3-0 split, but also very competitive. So sometimes, just like in every other sport, you have to dive in a little bit deeper to know how competitive the match was.
Yeah, and you know what, Crestview, though, I mean, still being able to go in 3-0, that's a big victory for Crestview, too. And I mean, you just saw how close Lakeview was able to keep it, but for Crestview to finish all 3 sets, I think is huge and shows what Crestview is trying to do over there this year and how competitive they're going to be. There
was a point in this match in set 2 that kind of emphasized the fact that everyone is on the first match. It's not just the teams. It was 21 to 20 Lakeview. Crestview got the point to make it 21-20 in the second set. And then Lakeview got a point on a service error, so make it 22-20. And then Lakeview got the next point. It should have been 23-20. Look up at the scoreboard, it says 22-21 Lakeview. And there was a big timeout. Coaches got talked to the referees. The crowd's getting real antsy. Crowd screaming at the scorekeeper. Both sides are yelling out what score they think it is. Big stoppage in the game, and we know how important momentum is in the volleyball. They kept it what it was, 22-21. That was the official score on the scoreboard. They kept it. Crestview scored the next 4 points of the set, won that set 25-22 to take the 2-0 lead, and the momentum was just it was really hard for Lakeview to bounce back from that.
Yeah, and you know, I don't think Lakeview is going to be one they're not going to hang their heads on this one too long. They're going to bounce back, and I think they're going to be
Gerard on Tuesday.
Yeah, they're going to be just fine. So yeah, I think Lakeview, nothing to worry about here. This is a competitive team in Crestview. Look for them to bounce back too. You'd rather lose game 1 than the last game of the season. So
and they got Gerard on Tuesday, as we said, and they can't hang their hats for a second because Gerard is a very good team. And Coach Guthrie was telling me after the game at Crestview that with their luck, they got their two really tough games back to back to start the season. So Gerard on Tuesday for Lakeview. I will be there, and that game will be on ysnlive.com. But it's a big one. We talked about it in our preview. A big matchup in week 1 of the volleyball season between Lakeview and Gerard.
Yeah, and I mean, this might set the tone too. And if Gerard can come in and surprise Lakeview now you're starting to you could come in and sneak one off of Lakeview, but I don't think you're going to be able to. I think Lakeview is going to be refocused and pretty upset after the loss to Crestview that they're going to want to come back and bounce back. So I think this is going to make for a very good competitive matchup between 2 good teams.
A thriller in Columbiana as McDonald comes back from a 2-0 deficit to win it in 5 sets. The scores were 29-31, 18-25, 25-17, 26-24, 15-13. McDonald steals one from Columbiana in 5. Gianna Constantino led the Blue Devils with 7 kills, collected 8 digs on the day. Megan Zajac got 21 digs to lead the Blue Devils, and Megan Klockner, who we've talked about at a lot in this program, might be one of the better setters in the area now. 14 assists for her, 6 kills as well. For Columbiana, Tori Long had a great day. 14 kills for her, 30 digs, so she has a double-double on the early season. Ava Hendrich and Cameron Perkins both had 9 kills for the Clippers. And you look at that, you lose a 2-0 set lead. Got to be hard to bounce back from that.
Yeah, and I mean, that's gonna be one of those things that just is. It's gonna have to build character to try to get yourself to that point too. And I mean, to try to bounce back from those type of victories, it's hard. Or those type of deficits, it's hard when you get yourself in an immediate hole. But yeah, I mean, you just got to show goodwill, grit, and determination. And I mean, some of these teams, they'll be able to build it too, and you'll see them definitely get better at that too over the season.
It flips the script from last year. Columbiana went to McDonald, fell down 2-0. Came back to beat the Blue Devils 3-2. So McDonald flips the script, goes to Columbiana, falls down 0-2 in very competitive sets. I mean, the first set, 31-29. Whoa, that's a barn burner. That means they went, 6 extra points.
Yeah, Yeah, so I mean, it's one of those back and forth affairs that happen too, and competitive to the very last second, but able to come out and finish it is huge.
So McDonald is 1-0 on the year. Columbiana drops to 0-1. You look at South Range, they went and split the tri-match at Southeast. They beat Southeast pretty handedly as they won that game in 2 sets. Remember, tri-matches best 2 out of 3 because there's more volleyball to be played. They won 25-7, 25-15. In that match, Maria Primavera had 6 kills and 3 digs. Jamie Farron with 10 assists, Ali Sauerwein with 5 kills. South Range then fell to West Branch in 2 sets, 18-25, 22-25. Maria Primavera and Hannah Heikkinen both led the Raiders in that game with 6 kills. Reagan Irons played really good back row defense. She had 8 digs for the Raiders in that, and they will host Boardman tonight. Will South Range. I'll be there for that game tonight. So that one will be on ysnlive.com. So, you split a tri-match. Those numbers aren't going to be as big in a tri-match match as they would in a normal one because you only have 2 sets. So that's why you see some of those leading with 6 kills, which you don't usually see. But when you only have 2 sets to work with, obviously those numbers are going to be deflated a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, but those tri matches are good too. It's good for them to see a lot of teams in the area, and they do serve a purpose. So it's not always about the whole stats that matter in those matches as much as it is just getting the experience and getting the looks at other teams.
And sometimes just getting your feet wet with that 2-set game instead of going to a 5-set match can be just as beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, it's just good to get all sorts of experiences that you can.
So we move to soccer. Boardman girls get the 3-0 win over Marlington. They had a balanced offense. Nadia Rwana, Sarah Blasco, and Megan Fubel all had goals for the Spartans, and the assists went to Blasco and Rwana. Faith Warden did a great job with goaltending as she had a clean sheet. No goals scored on her. And that's a pretty good Marlington team that we talked about with Cheryl Fico as being one of the teams to beat in the EBC. Boardman with the statement shut them out 3-0, and they will play Mooney on Wednesday to continue their season. You look at some more soccer scores, unless you have something to say about Boardman winning.
No, I just think that Boardman Mooney match is going to be fun to watch too. I think that's going to be an interesting matchup going forward. 2 YSN schools, and I think 2 programs that are really building that girls soccer program up. But that's a huge win for Boardman over a Marlington team that we know has good both boys and girls soccer programs, it seems like.
United with the 3-0 win on the boys side over Salem, and we talked to Mike Bailey, of course, earlier in the couple weeks ago. I don't know what I was going for. But United did beat Salem 3-0. As I pull up the stats for that one. You look at the goals were scored by Maddox Andrea. He scored 2. And Loudon Scheifeller. I hope I'm saying these names right. Loudon Scheifeller scored a goal as well for United. The assist went to Landon Jones, Jace Madure, and Wyatt Madure, both with assists. And Ethan Hively had a clean sheet, did not allow a goal behind the net. So United gets to win 3-0. They improve to 1-0 on the year, and they drop Salem to 0-1 on the year. You look at some games that are going on tonight on the soccer field as we pull up tonight's schedule real quick. By the way, that game at United versus Salem, and Coach Bailey talked about it, turning into a very quiet rivalry that is getting heated in the Columbiana County region.
That adds to it too, because that's not going to sit well with Salem losing to them 3-0. So when they do cross paths with United again, that's going to have added tensions now for sure.
Okay, so you look at today's schedule. Mooney plays Berea Mid Park. This is the boys first. That game will kick off at 7 o'clock. You go to Ursuline, and they are going to South Range. That game will start at 7 o'clock. And looks like Heartland Christian will be traveling to United. That game will kick off at 6 o'clock. On the girls' side, there are, 6, 9, 10 matchups tonight. United will be traveling to Canton Central Catholic. Crestview will be going to East Liverpool. You look at West Branch, and we talked to Cheryl Figo earlier in the program. They will go to Howland. They will go to Howland. Salem travels to Hubbard. Then you look at that's not in our family of networks. Lakeview will travel to Maplewood. Canton South will be going to McKinley, which is Niles. And then you look at Warren JFK, they're going to Ursuline. You look at Niles. I'm sorry, it was Canton McKinley up there with Canton South is playing at Canton McKinley. Niles is traveling to Warren Harding, and Canal Fulton will be traveling to Massillon, Washington. So those are some soccer games, most on the network, some in the area going on tonight. So once again, we've said it before, if you're not doing anything, plenty of time to get out to a soccer game, plenty of time to get out to a volleyball match as well. You'll be in Struthers. I'll be in South Range. Those two will be broadcasted.
Yeah, and I think there are going to be a couple of good matchups too tonight, and I think it's going to be fun as we look to expand our horizons and include as much volleyball as we can too on the network this year, and I think we're off to a pretty good start.
Yeah, we are. We definitely are, and let's go right from that into our volleyball previews. We have, I believe, if I counted right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 teams left to preview in volleyball in Division 4, if I'm not wrong.
I believe so, yes.
Let's start in the MVAC Scarlet here. We have a bunch of teams in this preview that live in the MVAC Scarlet. Let's talk about Jackson Milton and the Blue Jays. We already talked to Stephen Moore earlier, and he's going to be a new head coach for the Blue Jays. What do they have returning, and what should fans look forward to when they're talking about Jackson Milton volleyball?
Yeah, they were 17-6 last year, 10-4 overall in the league. And looking at what just some of the players that they're bringing back, I think one of the big ones too that we know coming back for her senior year, Kylie Wilson is going to be the big one. I think coming back for her senior year, she had 74, I think, kills last year as a junior, so she'll be coming back for her senior year, as well as Kara Costello too, had 138 kills last year as well. She's going to be coming back for her senior year as well. Another player too, looking at that is going to be coming back as well. Have her on here. Where did I put her name at? It is right there. Foltz. Yeah, Emily Foltz coming back as one of the setters, as well as Paige Grope. As well, 513, I believe, assists last year as your setter as a sophomore. She's coming back as a junior, and I think that's going to be another big piece for Jackson Milton this season, going into this season, having your setter return as a junior and have some pieces return as seniors. Yeah, they did lose a little bit. I think there are 3 top kill getters last year in Grunder, as well as Taylor. Kelsey Taylor as well was another one. Those are 2 of their top kill getters from last year that are both gone. But I mean, you do have a solid piece in Costello, you have a solid piece in Wilson, and you have a very good setter that's coming into her junior year. I think Jackson Milton's going to be pretty successful again this year.
Yeah, and like you said, they lost a lot of their production last year, but at least they returned their setter, and that's going to be a big thing, because it's a lot like when we talk about football, it's a lot easier to replace skill position players than it is to replace offensive linemen. A lot easier to replace hitters than it is to replace a setter. The setter runs the offense. She's going to be coming into her junior season doing that, and she's going to be 500-plus assists last year, and you expect her to get there this year as well. I think Kylie Wilson's going to have a big year. We know what an athlete she is. She's a standout on the basketball court as well. and she's just a hard worker. She's going to go in. She's going to be all in for volleyball season when it's volleyball season. And she's going to up that 70 plus kill that she got last year, probably get into the hundreds this year. And then you look at, I think some other hitters, they have other seniors this year as well. So a senior-led team. We talked to Coach Moore, a new coach. He takes over for Coach Prosy that had been there for, I believe, at least 15 seasons. I mean, she was there for a while. So a new coach, but this one, pretty good. I mean, he established this Fitch program that we talk about so much, and one of the reasons why Fitch has such a strong volleyball culture. That doesn't happen without Stephen Moore. So it should be a pretty positive season for Jackson Milton. Let's talk about their schedule and what team's going to lay in their way.
They open up their season tonight against East Canton, scheduled for 7 o'clock start. They go right to tomorrow where they're home against Mineral Ridge. This Thursday, they're away versus Western Reserve. Next Monday, they're home versus Springfield. Then starting Tuesday in September, the 7th, they're away versus McDonald. The 9th, they're away versus Waterloo. The 14th, home versus Lowville. 15th, away versus LeBray. 16th, away versus Mineral Ridge. 20th, away versus Newton Falls. 21st, home versus Western Reserve. 23rd, away versus Springfield. 27th, away versus Niles. 28th, away versus Sebring. 29th, home versus Ursuline. 30th, home versus McDonald. Then starting in October, the 4th, they are home versus Heartland Christian. The 5th, home versus Waterloo. The 16th, away versus Lowville. The 11th, home versus Sebring. The 13th, home versus Lisbon. And the 14th, home versus Columbiana to close out their season.
I think, Jackson Milton's going to be, biting the ankles to be at the top of the league. They finished, I believe, second in the MVAC last year behind Western Reserve and Springfield right on their tails. So I think Springfield and Western Reserve are going to be two big matchups. They play them twice, and they play Western Reserve this week. In fact, they play Western Reserve and Mineral Ridge. I'm sorry, Jackson Milton was third behind Mineral Ridge and Western Reserve. Play them both this week. Back to back,
tomorrow and Thursday. Yeah.
So,
and I mean, this East Canton matchup is not going to be a scoff over or a pushover matchup either. This is going to be a good matchup too tonight for the Blue Jays. But yeah, starting off the season, East Canton going to be tough, and then you go right to the tops of your conference last year, so you're going to have to be competitive against Ridge and Reserve.
Yeah, you go and you did East Canton girls basketball last year against Western Reserve, didn't you?
Yeah. East Canton came in to play girls basketball at Western Reserve. Yeah,
obviously Western Reserve demolished them, but it was supposed to be competitive. It didn't end up being competitive. But you look at East Canton, and they are not the. I remember it made you really confused because they are, for every other sport other than girls basketball, they are the
Hornets.
Believe, yeah. And then
the
girls basketball, they're the Wizards.
Yeah, and it's actually interesting too. And I haven't actually gotten the story on that. And I kind of want to know.
I did last year, and I don't remember it. It goes back to the history of their girls basketball program when it was starting, and it was trying to get respect, trying to separate girls basketball from the boys, and trying to get them their own identity. And whatever coach was there implemented this, where new name Wizards, and he was so well respected that after he left, they just kept it. I think it's something to that nature.
Yeah, and I mean, it was definitely. It seemed like a unique story because I'd never seen anything like that or any teams like that.
We wanted to make sure we had the right East Canton roster because we were like, wait, this is the Hornets.
Well, yeah, and that's what I was worried about. Like last second, I was freaking out. I was like, do I have the right roster for this? But I heard about that, and I'm like, there must be an interesting story to this too. And I mean, doing the research on it too. And I mean, a lot of the teams here, until I actually went into like the team's page, like they reference everywhere outside of them is referenced as the Hornets still, right, and not the Wizards. And that's what was confusing. And I was like, I thought I had the wrong team, but everywhere outside is still referencing them as the Hornets still. But it's like only within like the confines of like the school website have I seen it really references the Wizards.
So the East Canton Hornets going into Jackson Milton tonight, and it's a big week for Jackson Milton volleyball right off the bat. Mineral Ridge and Western Reserve both this week. If you're a Jackson Milton fan and you want to get out, make sure you get out to one of those two games and support these Blue Jays and what promises to be an important game for the Blue Jays going forward.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be important for them to try to get off on the right foot against East Canton. And then, I mean, yeah, you go right into tomorrow against Ridge, so no rest after this match. So no matter the result, you got to refocus real quickly because you got another match tomorrow.
I'm also really interested in that season-ending game against Columbiana. I think that like a lot of teams like to get a big game right before tournament to get them up. Non-conference, but both teams are going to be very competitive. Both teams are going to be gearing towards. I expect a pretty high seed in the bracket, in that super bracket. That'll be an interesting one as both teams are getting ready for the tournament to close out the season against Columbiana.
Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting too for Jacksonville, and it might be just what they need come tournament time. But yeah, I think it's going to be huge for these younger players to make that step up too, and I think that's going to be the determining factor on how successful Jackson Milton is going to be this year.
Let's talk about the team that won this conference last year and won the district, the Mineral Ridge Rams. I know they lost a whole lot. They're going to try to be regrouping. Talk about the Rams and their roster.
Yeah, of course, 22-3 last year, 14-0. You talked about them. They were first overall within the conference last year. But going into this year, you talk about what they lost. You obviously you lose Caitlin Lesko, your 315 kills, 40% plus kill percentage. You lose her. You lose Jersey Tucker too, another 140 kills on a 35% percentage. You also lose Morgan Sigley too, 161 kills, 28 percentage, and Daniel Allett too, 98 kills, 41% percentage. But I mean, ones that you're bringing back to, they're the sophomore from last year too, and Hannah Loeb, I think, coming back as a junior. She had 108 kills last year. I think she's going to be one to look at. But there was also a couple, also another junior too, and Megan Gerberry too, that's going to be coming back for her senior year. She's going to be one of the few seniors on this team. But, I mean, you're really just kind of looking, I think, at some of these younger players and players that we really don't even know yet that were on the JV team that you're going to be seeing come up through the ranks. Because the biggest, I think, one is losing Allett, too.
We'll just stop that. Daniel Allett was the best setter in the area last year, in my humble opinion.
There were 187 assists last year. It was incredible.
There were a lot of good ones. I think if my memory serves, she was on the YSN first team as a setter. Caitlin Lesko won the Player of the Year at YSN. They lost a lot.
They do have another Allett, though, in their system.
Sammy Allett's coming in. I don't know if she sets. Last year, she was like a defensive specialist. Came in, got a lot of digs for them. So we'll have to see if she had setting in her genes. Not sure, but she's a very good player, too. I mean, the Allett girls are both very good. So they do have some stuff returning. Gerberry is very impressive. Loeb was the second rotation middle blocker, so she's going to be in the middle probably for the Rams. But you're trying to make up for losing over 500 kills last year.
It's definitely going to be tough, too, for the Rams, and you might see some growing pains, at least in the first part of this season. But if they have the talent, too, in the JV squad, which we assume they do, and you assume some of these younger players, like Samantha Allett's going to be stepping into bigger roles this year, so we're going to see them a little bit more unchained and with a little bit more seasoning on them because, of course, they have a whole off season of practicing. They have a whole practice before the actual season starts that they've been doing with coach as well. So I think Mineral Ridge, you might see some growing pains to start out for, but I don't think this is going to be a drastic drop off or anything for Mineral Ridge. I could be wrong, but I think they're still going to be very competitive because I still think they have good JV programs and good players through the ranks that they could definitely bring up and insert into these roles.
I've been told, now I haven't seen this, but I've been told by a couple of coaches off the air, Mineral Ridge has a very good freshman class coming up. We'll have to see.
We don't know the names of any of them, but this is gonna be interesting.
I've been told, don't sleep. Mineral Ridge lost a lot, we get it, but I've been told by various sources their freshman group very impressive, and to not sleep on Mineral Ridge. Let's look at their schedule and what kind of things await them in 2021.
Yeah, they open up their season tomorrow against Jackson Milton. That is the home opener for them. Well, not the home opener, their season opener, I should say, before they go to LeBray Thursday. And then their home opener is next Monday versus LeBray. They go next Tuesday versus Lowville, also at home. Then starting in September, the 2nd, they are home versus Western Reserve. The 7th, they're away versus Waterloo. The 9th, they're away versus McDonald. 11th, home versus Cardinal. 16th, home versus Jackson Milton. 18th, away versus Hubbard. 18th also is going to be versus West Branch. I think that's part of that tournament, or a tri-match, I should say. The 21st, they're home versus Sebring. 23rd, away versus Lowville. The 28th, away versus Western Reserve. The 30th, home versus Waterloo. And then only game I have for them right now in October is the 9th versus Columbiana. So maybe some more games trying to get scheduled in October. I'm not sure right now for the Rams, or if they're going with a minimum amount of games or a minimum amount of scheduled games this season.
We saw that a couple other times in our volleyball previews. As those schedules fill up, we'll keep you all updated. Like, hey, they're going to play this week. Obviously, every night we'll go through what games are going on.
Volleyball is a rough estimate of a schedule. It's not like football where we have almost a guaranteed matchup. Even that's up in the air, and that used to never be up in the air if you're playing football on Friday, who you're playing, or needing to schedule someone late. But yeah, volleyball, it's a rough estimate. You know who you're going to play, but they might pick up a match. They might pick up you never know, because we know there's a max amount of games they can't cross and there's a minimum amount of games. But if anything in the middle, they could schedule. They try to get scheduled games, but some teams like to have room where they can pick and choose who they want to play. Then
that middle ridge schedule starts and ends with Western Reserve, in my opinion. I mean, this is a rivalry. It's been a rivalry for the last several years. They both lost, something that made them super special, because Western Reserve lost Danielle Volatich, of course, and we all just went over what Middle Ridge lost. It's going to be a fun match between the Rams and the Blue Devils. Very highly contested. It got kind of emotional last year. There was some chippiness in those matchups, so a very heated rivalry, and we're going to see it again this year. I think that those are the games right there. Western Reserve, they were 1-2 last year. Who's going to take the top spot, or is Jackson Milton going to creep up and take, or one of these other teams we haven't talked about yet? I mean, it's fun, but I think it's going to start and begin with those two teams and how they play against each other.
Only 26 days separate their two matchups, the 2nd and 28th of September. So they meet up with each other really quickly. Again, only 3 weeks, basically, a little bit over 3 weeks that separate them. And those are going to be two big matchups. One to start September, where you kind of you'll see if you win or lose that match, how many, what you're looking ahead of yourself. And then also right before the end of the season, end of September too. Another reminder where you have to go and face Western Reserve again.
Let's move on from Middle Ridge and preview the Western Reserve Blue Devils. Perfect segue. Talk about Reserve, what they lost, and what they're bringing back this year.
Yeah, let me bring them up really quickly.
I
think we did them, honestly.
Reserve, didn't we?
I'm pretty sure we did do Western Reserve.
This is the downside.
This is why you let me do the transitions. That's why you don't take the transitions. Because you don't know what you're doing, and you're going right to Western Reserve, and we already stopped at Western Reserve on our road trip. So let's go to the other team in the MVAC in McDonald. Why don't we? They were 4th in the conference last year. They were 12-12 overall, 9-7 in the conference last year. And McDonald was one of those teams that was right around the middle of the pack. But I think they might be making some strides, but they did lose some in seniors as well. We already know Molly Howard and what she did. She was also a big part of the volleyball team. Now, 198 kills, 35 and a third kill percentage. Sophia Constantino, too, another one, 159 kills, 33.6% kill percentage. So losing that is going to be rough. But you have Olivia Booth coming back, who had 94 kills last year. You have also Grace Bundy, who's coming back, who had 84 kills last year. Both Booth, a sophomore, Bundy, a freshman last year. They're coming back for their junior and sophomore year. So you're going to have them both coming back, as well as Megan Klockner too, coming back for her sophomore year. She had 76 kills as well. So you have some good young talented players, I think, on this McDonald team, and this is why McDonald doesn't rebuild, they reload. They just put other pieces where the pieces are missing, and why McDonald is usually very successful in athletics. The biggest part about Klockner coming back for her sophomore year is that she had 437 assists to pair with her kills as well last year. So her coming back for her sophomore year says you got to set her for the next 3 years to depend on, as well as Maria Razil too, 147 assists for her as well as a sophomore. She's coming back for her junior year. So you have two very good setters in the McDonald program that you could look forward to having for the next 2 years. And I think that's one of the things that McDonald's really hanging their hats high on now. Now it's just developing these younger kill getters too, who are really respectable, 80 plus kills for a lot of these freshmen last year. Now develop them as their sophomore, junior, and senior year progresses with these setters in place. I think McDonald has a very good, bright upbringing coming up for them.
No one I'd rather develop my hitters with more than Megan Klockner. I mean, I've seen her play. I'm telling you, top level setting. She's got the height. When I talked about Danielle Aulette last year, and I was talking to her personally, I told her if you can't coach height, and that's one of the unfortunate things. If she was 4 or 5 inches taller, she would have been a Division I setter. I mean, well, Megan Klockner is 4 or 5 inches taller. She's going to be a Division I setter. I mean, she's already went to Nebraska's camp. Nebraska is one of the best volleyball programs in the country.
Yeah, and honestly, too, you lose some height too in Molly Howard too. But I mean, Klockner standing really the same thing. I know they didn't play same positions, but I mean, still height all around on the volleyball court is still effective no matter where it is. And you can't teach height, and like you said, Anthony, but still maintaining some of that, and especially in a setter position too, meaning there's a lot more room for them to go get the ball too, and usually larger height means longer appendages too, which means that they could go down and get those digs as well too. And it seems like all around, not just Klockner, but there's some solid height all around this McDonald team as well.
And head coach Mike Klockner, a new coach to the realm this year, as he takes over the program. He was an assistant last year, so he knows what he has. He knows what's in the personnel. It's not someone brand new coming that doesn't know anything about the program. So not only is he coaching his daughter up, but he's also coaching a team that he's been with for the last several years.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be huge too. And we talk about parent and player coaches and how that dynamic really does help too. And you see players really respond well too when you have that coach at home. Basically, getting all that extra coaching time does help and prove to be valuable. And I think that's going to be one of the big ones too. But I'm really excited. I'm excited for this team. I'm excited for some of these young players to step up.
Talking about having a dad as a coach, obviously that Brazil name, everyone in McDonald country knows that. Not a volleyball coach, but still coach mentality. And Jeff Brazil holds nothing back.
Yeah, absolutely not. And I think that's the biggest thing too. And I mean, having a Brazil in that volleyball program, that family name coming into it. But another one I'm really I'm excited to see what Grace Bundy can do this year. I mean, 5'9". As a freshman, like I said, 84 kills, 20.8% kill percentage, which honestly, for a first-year freshman coming into varsity volleyball against some very good teams, that's solid, productive numbers as a freshman. So you're getting another 5'9" player back, so another one of those decently heighted players on McDonald's team that you're getting back. And I mean, she's another one I'm excited to see if she makes a big improvement from last year to this year.
Well, let's talk about McDonald's schedule and what they have in front of them.
Bringing up their schedule as they will be opening up. Well, actually,
opening
up their home season. Their home schedule is going to be going on tonight, I should say, at 7 p.m. So opening up their home game with Bristol coming into tonight. Of course, they already won against Columbiana on Saturday 3-2. But yeah, they open up home tonight against Bristol. Then they go away versus Western Reserve on Tuesday, tomorrow. Thursday, they're home versus Lowville. Next Tuesday, they are home versus Waterloo. And then starting in September, next Wednesday, they are home versus Niles. Tuesday, the 7th of September, they're home versus Jackson Milton. The 8th, away versus Southeast. 9th, home versus Mineral Ridge. 16th, home versus Western Reserve. 21st, away versus Lowville. 23rd, away versus Waterloo. 25th, away versus Liberty. 30th, away versus Jackson Milton. And starting in October, the 2nd, they're home versus Columbiana. The 4th, away versus LeBray. And the 12th, home versus Wyndham.
When I look at that, and obviously we already saw them win against Columbia, and that was one of the games I would have circled if we would have had them last week because of how good that match was last year. I think it's going to be about, when you talk about McDonald, it's still going to be about games against teams that were right along where you were last year, the Springfields, Jackson Miltons, and then if you can really take care of them, then can you compete with Mineral Ridge and Western Reserve?
And I mean, you got Western Reserve tomorrow. I mean, don't take your focus off Bristol tonight, but you have Western Reserve tomorrow. So already 1-0 on the year. You got that. You won 3-2 sets wise to Columbiana. So a very close matchup, but you came away with the win. You have a matchup with Bristol. If you win here tonight, then you go away to Western Reserve. If you can get a win away versus Western Reserve tomorrow, you're looking pretty good as far as the conference is concerned. And you want to start you don't want to be that 4 seed. You want to take that next step and be in the top 3 and be competitive in the conference. The best way to do it is beat the teams that were at the top of the conference. And I mean, you could start right there, Western Reserve on the 24th.
Yeah, you could start there, and then all of a sudden you're 3-0. You can use that momentum for the rest of the season.
Absolutely. A 3-0 start in volleyball is huge, especially if you're going against Columbiana, Bristol, and Western Reserve in those 3 matches. But yeah, definitely look for Bristol tonight. Going to be tough, I think, for McDonald, but another game that if they can come away with the victory too, and it might be another one of those 3-2 sets, I'm not sure. But I think if they come away with the victory, this is a huge statement starting out 2-0 for the Blue Devils of McDonald, I should say.
All right, so I'm gun shy with these transitions. I don't believe we've done Springfield yet. I know they're Division 4. And we had their coach on, but I don't think we've previewed them.
Let me see what we have. What I have on my thing. Yeah, we do need Springfield. You're right.
All right, here we go. Okay.
There we go. All right. Springfield last year was 6-16, 4-10 overall in the conference, and that placed him 6th overall in the conference standings last year. And some players that they're bringing back. The biggest thing with Springfield, though, last year, I believe only one senior on the team.
Carly Bacon.
And losing that, I think one, maybe 2 seniors. I'm not sure if there might have been a second senior, but overall, this was a team very, very young last year. Madison Lesnack's coming back. She had 146 kills. She's coming back for her junior year. Sarah Pontus is coming back. 117 kills last year. She's coming back for her junior year as well. Some other one, Brooke Cunningham, too, had some production last year as well. Also, JC Mullen, too, coming back. She had 99 kills last year as well. She's coming back for her junior year. So 3 players, your 3 top kill getters are all coming back for their junior year. So it shows just how young this team was. And I think the biggest one, too, I mean, coming back from last season, too, you lose Climb, too. That the biggest loss was Mackenzie Climb, too. 370 assists last year for Springfield. Losing that's going to be unfortunate, but I think that's going to be the biggest thing is if Springfield can find that next setter, who's going to replace her. I know Pacuda, I think Gianna Pacuda was one that they were incorporating her. She was doing it a little bit last year. I don't know if she's going to move to full-time setter or who their full-time setter in Springfield's going to be, but the overall thing is there's a very young team that's going to be, I think, take another step of improvement because a lot of these sophomores are going to have another year of experience under their belt.
Yeah, and they returned the 2 most important players, Maddie Lesnick, JC Mullen. I mean, yeah, you have those 2. Those 2 are just flat-out athletes, playmakers, big-time clutch. We've seen them in every sport. JC's a big basketball star, and Maddie's a big softball star, so we've seen them both excel in other sports. They're going to excel in volleyball. And I think getting Pachuta those reps last year, not all the reps, Mackenzie Clem, obviously a very good setter, but getting her in and getting her feet wet means she's going to be ready to take those reins. Springfield is a very proud volleyball program. And even though that year last year was probably acceptable for a lot of programs, not acceptable for Springfield. I mean, they are used to getting into districts, going to the district championship game, things like that. So not exactly up to Springfield standard, and they're going to fix that this year because they have so much coming back. I talked to Coach Jones during the season last year, and she just said, we're going through this so we can be special next year. And she fully anticipates them having a very good season this year.
And you know what? They very well might. And with all the improvements that they are going to hopefully have with all these young players making that next step, I don't think it's hard pressed to think that they're going to be improved from last year. I mean, you don't know how improved they're going to be, but I think it's definitely realistic to expect them to be improved from last year.
Well, I'll tell you this, it's a wide open conference. I mean, if you're really looking at it on paper, because we haven't seen a lot of these teams yet. They're all opening either tonight or tomorrow. It's a wide open conference. We don't know what Jackson Milton's bringing to the table. We don't know what Middle Ridge is bringing to the table. We hear that they have a really good freshman class. We don't know. We don't know how Western Reserve is going to replace the blocks that Danny Volatich left. There's a lot of things we don't know. We know a lot about Springfield. They're kind of the known. Everyone else is kind of the wild card. So you can't count them out when talking about teams that can compete in the MVAC.
Yeah, absolutely not. And I think that's going to be big for Springfield going into this year, knowing that, it is wide open and it is anybody's for the taking, that there really isn't that one team that you're looking at like, oh God, we have to overcome them. It's not really like that. It's wide open because you talked about all the losses, the powerhouse and what we know of the powerhouses are gone from last year. It's open now for these players to make their names for themselves. Because there isn't that Danny Vuletich anymore. There isn't those names that we're talking about. So now it's wide open. Be that name now.
Let's talk about their schedule and what the Tigers have in front of them in 2021.
Yeah, opening up this season, they're away versus Girard tonight. That starts, of course, at 7 p.m. Go to tomorrow, they're home versus Lowville. And then Thursday, they are home versus Waterloo. And next Monday, they are away versus Jackson Milton. Starting in September, the 2nd, they are home versus McDonald. 7th, they are home versus Sebring. The 8th, away versus Struthers. The 9th, away versus Western Reserve. 14th, away versus Mineral Ridge. 16th, they are away versus Lowville. The 20th, home versus Cardinal Mooney. 21st is away versus Waterloo. The 23rd, home versus Jackson Milton. 27th, home versus Mineral Ridge. The 28th, away versus McDonald. 30th is away versus Sebring. And starting in October, the 4th, they're home versus Newton Falls. The 5th, they're home versus Western Reserve. And the 12th, they're home versus or away versus Columbiana before finishing out their season, the 13th, away versus Brookfield.
That's a tough end of the season. I mean, you got to wait a while before you have that second matchup with Western Reserve. I never like having really important matchups in the conference that late in the season because you never know how much the season is going to wear and tear you. And Western Reserve is going to be sitting there. That could be a very important game for Springfield in the last week of the season.
Not to mention, you close out the season, Columbiana and Brookfield before the end of the season. So, I mean, it could affect Springfield where they're ranked as far as the conference is concerned if you're trying to win the MVAC, but also can affect them seeding-wise come tournament time. So that last 3-game stretch is definitely going to be big, I think, for the Tigers.
So DJ Oakley has come back in the studio. He has some more news for us as I turn him up. And DJ, what do you got for us now?
Breaking news, just as we talked about earlier, we had questions around Lisbon and the Mineral Ridge game because Wyndham got canceled earlier with East Palestine. So the Mineral Ridge against Lisbon game for Friday has been canceled. So that's 2 games off the docket for us. Now the question starts becoming, does Mineral Ridge and East Palestine go head-to-head? Mineral Ridge was already slated to have an away game at Lisbon. East Palestine was slated to have a home game against Wyndham. It would make the most sense. We're going to talk about it on Power Hour coming up here in about a half hour, but we will continue to see if that's – because, I mean, that's an interesting game, and it makes sense. However, Mineral Ridge is much different than a Wyndham, and it comes down to preparation for both teams. So – it's going to be interesting.
The good thing is this isn't Thursday, so you would have time to prepare for a team, try to get film
a little bit
and put stuff into practice.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you know coaches and players, there's probably already film about, from Wyndham that Palestine was looking at, and vice versa. And if you're Mineral Ridge, looking at Lisbon film, and vice versa. So, only losing a couple days of film coverage, but it makes sense. I don't know if they'll be able to make it happen, but you can keep your fingers crossed for these kids that, number one, that were part of the COVID situation, that they can stay healthy, and maintain their health, and it ends at one game as opposed to, next game. But I mean, we talked about it, Ant. This is going to be all season long. This is going to be, trying to track who's got it, who's getting tested, and who's coming up sick and stuff like that. It's just an unfortunate situation, but it seems to be one that is such is life now.
Right. You'd rather have it now though than the playoffs or something like that. So
yeah, so we'll get an updated. We'll kind of keep our ear to the ground on what's going on with East Palestine and Mineral Ridge, if there is a kind of connection there, or if East Palestine, we put it out there earlier, East Palestine looking for somebody, anybody. But Mineral Ridge makes the most sense at this point.
You're right, it does. So we'll stay updated, and I'm sure you'll have more stuff on the Power Hour, like you said.
Yeah, we'll try to keep everybody up to date and on that situation, but also be able to try and redo our schedules, with our announcers, because our guys are out 2 weeks. Paul does a good job of making sure that everybody's ready to go. So there might be a little bit of a shuffle here on YSN, so you might be able to hear maybe a different voice that you haven't heard before on the network. So good luck.
Yeah. Woo.
Good job, boys.
Thank you. DJ Oakley bringing up some more unfortunate news this time. We on the Lisbon side of things, and Lisbon having to cancel their game. We assume because of contact tracing, since obviously Wyndham had their problem.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, it leaves a hole now. So I mean, like DJ said, it makes the most sense, but we will see. But it's a developing story right now going on currently today that there's 2 games now that was on the schedule for Friday that are now off the schedule. So we have 2 teams looking for games. Makes the most sense that 2 teams that are really, I mean, going to be very close division-wise anyway. I think if they're not already in the same division, I'm not sure where their divisions lie, honestly, off the bat. But, I mean, it's still going to be an interesting matchup, and it kind of does make the most sense. Just pick a team. I mean, these are going to be the closest I think you're going to travel to or have to travel to get a game in. So, I mean, it makes the most sense.
Well, since Lisbon football won't be playing this week, let's preview their volleyball team and give Lisbon fans something to look forward to this week, and let's preview what the Blue Devils will bring into the season.
Did we already preview the Lisbon?
I don't think so.
Did we? Are you sure?
I'm gun side out. I don't think.
Let me check. I mean, I could pull up on something. I think I do have something. I do have something on Lisbon anyway, but I don't know if we already did or did it. That's the only thing I'm curious about. I thought we did. Are they in D3?
They're in D4.
They're in D4? Okay, I'll pull up Lisbon. I didn't know if we did.
I don't know. This is so sad.
I'll pull up Lisbon.
We got to keep records. We got to keep records.
Yeah, I mean, we do, but it's all right. I mean, Lisbon, if you get a second preview, you get a second preview. Lisbon
once you say some names, I might be able to we've heard this before.
6-15 they were last year, 4-9 overall. That put them 6th in the conference. And then looking at what Lisbon is bringing back this year, Justice Vrabel is coming back, 120 kills from last year.
Yeah, because we've talked about Justice. So
I thought we talked about Vrabel and then Van Guysen too coming, or Van Guysen being the big loss and Vrabel being.
You know what? We did the whole EOAC minus. We came back and did Southern that one day, and then we were doing EOAC. My bad. Now it's starting to remember.
Yeah,
but we can do Wyndham.
Yeah, we can do. We can do Wyndham.
We can give Wyndham fans some stuff to talk about. So do Wyndham.
Yeah. Looking at Wyndham, 3-14 overall last year, 3-12, and they were 8th in their Northeastern Conference, respectively, last year. The biggest thing I think coming back for Wyndham from last year, you're bringing back Zara Cunningham, 118 kills, 30.5% kill percentage from last year. So bringing that back, I think, is definitely going to be big for them. Gintert, I believe, is their head coach. She is coming back for her 6th season. They are returning, though, 9 lettermen from this season. And, yeah, Cunningham being the captain. 75 blocks also for Cunningham last year. So I think getting Cunningham back as your leader is going to be huge. Some young players, too. Bria Daniel coming back. She was 75 kills last year as well. Oh, actually, my bad. Bria is actually not on the team this year. So she's the one that's lost. Excuse me. Bringing her back. It's Julia Jones is the one that I have at 57 kills last year. Excuse me. 57 kills for Julia Jones and a 19.3% kill percentage. She's coming back from last year, as well as I believe Angelina Jones as well. She's going to be coming back. She had 34 kills as well. So you're getting some younger players back, both of those freshman in Jones and then a sophomore in the other Jones. So bringing both the Jones back, freshman and sophomore now going to be junior and sophomore. Getting both of them back this year is going to be huge. But I think the biggest one, just having Cunningham back as your ultimate blocks leader and your ultimate your kills leader from last year. So getting that back is going to be huge, I think, for Wyndham.
Yeah, and a lot of youth last year. I think that was one of the reasons why the record was what it was. A lot of youth and a lot of experience coming back, and we've talked about it with several other teams. When you have youth, you go through some lumps so you can get better the next year, and Wyndham looks to be much improved.
Yeah, and I think they will too. And Quinn Justin too is another one. She's expected to get a lot of varsity. She's a 3-sport athlete that's going to be playing as well. She plays volleyball, basketball, and softball. All of this information that I'm getting to on Quinn Justin is per Brandon McPherson. Too, so thanks. So I will cite my source, Brandon McPherson, our friend over there at Wyndham, sent us a lovely report on this as well.
He told me that he does the stat book for volleyball, or the score book, or the scoreboard, or he'll be at volleyball games. So if you're at Wyndham and you go to a volleyball game, say hi to Brandon for us.
His biggest hole, they said they need to find a solid libero, I think, is what he has on their report. And he said once they could have a solid piece in there, they've been looking for that piece or a consistent one to put there since 2019, and that's really the biggest hole. And as you know, Anthony, that's an important spot to have a good solid piece in for volleyball.
Yeah, it's always your dig leader. Now you don't have to have a libero. Libero is just like a substitution option. There are some teams that don't use a libero. It's not common, but it happens. Libero just means you can rotate without using a substitution, and you stay in the back row. But you need defense, and you need a defensive leader. Now, whether you make that a libero or not, you need someone that's back there in the back row, knows where people are supposed to be, and can really get down and get good passes up and get the ball to your setter. So libero, yeah, it would be great, and obviously that gives you some substitution leeway. But you don't need a libero is not a mandatory position to have. It's optional.
Yeah, and I mean it's interesting because I see a lot of teams around the area utilize it too. And I mean just a highlight.
Most teams have a legitimate libero. Gerard did not last year. They had a libero. They didn't use her too much in the rotation. But so this, for example,
and it could just be catering to what Wyndham's style of play is, and that might be why there's a need for it. Then, because it's the style of play, and it constitutes needing one at that position. I don't know, but I mean that's
sometimes teams that have, if they're blessed enough to have multiple hitters that are also not defensive liabilities, and they run a 6-2. Then they won't have a libero, because obviously then you're gonna want to keep your hitters in the game if they're in the back row. They're not liable on defense, and you have 2 setters that rotate in the back row. That usually takes up your back row, but most teams aren't that blessed.
Yeah, and I think that was the biggest thing. I think Wyndham was only using 1 setter primarily last year anyway, so it would make sense then that if that was the case then.
And like I said, 95% of volleyball teams have a libero and use it frequently. There's just that one every now and then that you see they just don't need, they either don't need the libero or their personnel set up not to have one.
A volleyball lesson from Anthony Hartwig, our resident expert on the sport. And we thank you though, Anthony, because I mean keeping us up to date on that, because I mean I personally did not know that, because I've never seen a team not utilize one, because every team I've seen in the area has one. So
The girl in the different colored jersey.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what you see.
It's a sequel to the girl with the dragon tattoo.
But yeah, I mean, just usually seeing one. But I mean, yeah, I don't think I've encountered a high school volleyball team that hasn't had one yet. So, but I mean, like you talked about, I mean, I guess there is a couple of teams in the area too, and that's big.
The one that like I remember Gerard had a libero, dressed a libero, but there were a lot of rotations when the libero was not in the game. So not every team uses it. It's just its preference. Let's talk about Wyndham's schedule and what they have in front of them.
Bringing up their schedule, they open up their season, or I should say, I believe they actually already opened up their season, and they did on Saturday. It was a 3-0 loss, unfortunately, to Newton Falls. But tonight they are home. They open up their home season, I should say, home schedule with Lordstown coming in tonight at 7 o'clock. Wednesday, they face off against Bloomfield. That's away. The 26th, that's Thursday, they're home versus Bristol. 30th, next Monday, they are home versus Fairport Harbor Harding. And then starting in September the 1st, they're facing Tuning Valley and Andover. Then the 2nd, they're facing Maplewood. The 7th, they're facing Chalker at home. The 8th, they're home versus Badger. 11th, home versus Rootstown. And also LeBray, I believe, a part of a tri-match. The 13th, they are away versus Matthews, Vienna. The 15th, they're away versus Lordstown. 20th, home versus Bloomfield. 22nd, away versus Bristol. 27th, away versus Fairport Harbor Harding. The 29th, versus Andover, Pymatuning Valley. The 4th of starting in October, they are home versus Maplewood. The 6th, away versus Chalker. 11th, away versus Badger. 12th, away versus McDonald. And close out the season home versus Matthews of Vienna.
And honestly, this is something that I have to work on with what volleyball is going to look like in that conference. What teams are the teams
because
to watch?
It's completely new. Yeah, I mean,
because I honestly, like, if I had to pick big games, I'd be like, I don't know what the big teams in the conference are.
The funny thing is, too,
obviously, with the team that had the record they did last year, every game's a big game. You want to make improvements. They do play McDonald at McDonald a little late in the season, so
we're seeing a few teams play Lordstown as well, and they play Lordstown for 2. And a lot of teams on the YSN docket is playing Lordstown as well as a very common opponent that's playing a lot of YSN schools this year. So Lordstown's another one of those familiar opponents, but playing other opponents that have similar names to other schools that aren't YSN schools, but like Warren Harding, and then you got Fairport Harbor Harding, but that's why I try to preface that too. And then you have Pie Valley and Pymatuning Valley.
You know, it's an opportunity if any of these schools want to come over to YSN's, family.
Absolutely, too. And I mean, it could open up the doors, too. And like I said, the one school that we seem to face off a lot of in both football and volleyball this year is Lordstown. And I don't know what Lordstown has going on, but I know Lordstown being fairly close to a lot of YSN schools, and they seem to compete a lot against YSN schools.
Pymatuning Valley has been on the network multiple times, and because they're usually in our district for basketball and for baseball, softball, and they play a couple of our area schools in football. So they're definitely, like I said, arms wide open here at YSN. Shameless plug.
Absolutely. Always looking to cover more schools and cover more athletes in the area too, because the more under our banner, the happier we are.
I'm really gun shy. Sebring. I don't think we've talked about Sebring.
We have not talked about Sebring. And you know what? Sebring is actually one of those bright spots, I think, going into this season. 12-11 last year, so had a winning record overall. 4-10, though, in the conference. That placed them 6th overall in their MVAC division. Coming back from last year, I think the biggest thing for Sebring is getting back Blake Thomas is going to be the biggest one. I think having her back is going to be huge, I think, because it's going to be what really is going to propel this team to get that offense going. I mean, you get your kills leader back at 30.6% kill percentage as a freshman, Anthony, 182 kills on a 30.6 percentage. Getting her back as a sophomore, I think, is going to be huge. And I think that's going to be one of the players you're going to try to build around. Also to talk about too, you got Devin Reggie too, that 88 kills last year. She's going to be coming back for her senior year, as well as also Delaney Reggie too, coming back for her senior year as well. So, I mean, you got a couple of them coming back for senior year, and also Olivia Hawk, too, coming back for her senior year as well, who had 112 kills. So you have 3 seniors coming back that all had 75 or more kills, and you have your kills leader coming back as a sophomore. A lot to be hopeful and optimistic about, I think, over there in Sebring. Also, too, coming back, you do have one of your assists, and Mallory Harshman, too, coming back at 196 assists last year. So she comes back as one of your setter. You do lose Abby DeOstrov, losing her from 211 assists last year. So they might, I don't know if they're going to switch to one setter or they're going to go to a 6-2 and put another setter in there. They may, but I think getting one of them back is going to be definitely the biggest part. And also Blake Thomas, 77 solo blocks, 15 assists, 92 total blocks as well.
Blake Thomas is going to be a star.
Yeah, and Olivia Hawk too, also 72 total blocks, 58 solo last year as well.
I mean, Sebring's going to really rely on their net defense, and maybe they might be a team to watch, because you look at these other teams. Western Reserve lost their main blocker. Middle Ridge lost their main blocker. Jackson Milton lost their main blocker in Logan Grunder. Sebring did. Sebring's there with their middle blocker and 2 really good blockers, actually. Sebring might be someone to keep an eye on.
And 12-11 last year, so right there at the middle of the pack, and that was for Blake Thomas's freshman year too. 3 more years of eligibility and 182 kills, 34% plus kill percentage. That's an effective player. That's a player that's stats that you see from most juniors coming out of a freshman, and that's pretty special too. We talk about freshmen getting 75, 80 kills and call that productive and a good season, because that's something for them to build on. She was a leader in block. She was a leader in kills. She was a leader in kill percentage as a freshman. That's special. And you got that for 3 more years of development. Whew. She could be pretty darn good by her senior year.
Got comments from Michael Dunn on YouTube on the Boardman Mitsubishi comment section. And yeah, we're definitely going to keep an eye on Columbiana volleyball all year. They lost over the weekend, but it was very competitive. Lost a 2-0 lead to McDonald. They are young and talented, and they still have Tori Long, who's a senior, who had 30 digs on Saturday to say welcome to 2021. 14 kills, 30 digs, a double for Tori Long. So we're going to be keeping our eyes on Columbiana. That is for sure.
I mean, staying competitive all the way through too, and it was one that Columbiana could have came out on top of at the end of the day. And it was, but I mean, it's definitely one you could see.
Coach Martin is going to look at that game and go to their team and say, guys, we should have won that. We have to close that out. And that's just
it came so close to closing it out too. And it's a heartbreaker, but it's ones you do need in the middle of the season too, to remind you of what the main goal is and to keep you focused.
Yeah. And we have 2 more teams. I think we're going to have to postpone them to tomorrow. We haven't forgotten about you, Lowville and Warren JFK. We are fighting the clock, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't
want JFK and Heartland Christian will have
You're right.
Heartland Christian will have to move till tomorrow. But we could go through real quick Sebring's schedule at least and finish out.
Get through Sebring's schedule I just want to remind those fans that we are not forgetting about you, and you are well received.
Time constraints just are unfortunate, but we will get to Warren JFK, Lowville, and Heartland Christian tomorrow too. But Sebring opening up the season against Our Lady of the Elms, Anthony, an away game.
Whoa.
5:00. I don't know if I've ever heard of Our Lady of the Elms, but that's who they're opening up the season with tonight at 5:00 before going to a familiar opponent tomorrow against Waterloo. That's away. They're home the 26th versus Mineral Ridge. That's their home opener. Then they go the 30th home versus Latonia. The 31st is home versus Western Reserve. The 9th in September, starting in September, they're away versus Lowville. 11th away versus Valley Christian. 15th away versus Latonia. 16th home versus Waterloo. 21st away versus Mineral Ridge. 23rd away versus Western Reserve. 28th home versus Jackson Milton. And the only game on the docket right now in October is away versus Jackson Milton. But of course, those games, that's October 11th. But of course, I think more games will be filled out as the season goes along, and we'll have the more complete end of the year schedule as that time comes around. But I mean, as far as we know, beginning of the schedule and these beginning 2 weeks are as accurate can get.
Yeah, and I don't want to beat a dead horse with this MVAC Scarlets here, but with so much unknown at the top, I think the most important games for a team like Sebring are going to be the Jackson Milton West Reserve and Middle Ridge games. I mean,
You're going to have to beat the teams that are at the top. And I mean,
right.
Sebring is primed to take that spot at the top or take a good shot at it, bringing back a lot of juniors that are seniors now. And then you have Thomas coming back for her sophomore year. So you expect, we talked about freshman and sophomore being that biggest gap of improvement. You're getting her back now, too.
All right, we'll take a quick break and be back to wrap today's episode of Running Point up next on ysnlive.com.
Every customer has a story, whether it's buying a car for the first time, helping them get approved, or finding the perfect car for their budget. I'm proud that people trust me with their story. I'm Tracy, and I'm ready to go the extra mile for you, only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
When looking for home design inspiration, don't just be inspired, be Baird inspired. Whether new or remodeling, Baird Brothers has the latest trends like shiplap to refresh your home. Go from inspiration to installation with our wide selection of in-stock American hardwoods. From the rustic charm of antique oak to the warmth of traditional cherry, Baird Brothers has what you need to make your home inspiring. Baird Brothers, our family's heritage, your family's home.
WRS Wealth Advisors is the area's premier wealth and retirement specialist. With our combined 70 years experience and comprehensive wealth strategy, we assist our clients attain their goals. Call 330-965-0370 to learn more about our individual and corporate financial planning services, or visit wrswealthadvisors.com. Good luck, athletes.
At Hubbard Chevrolet, Hubbard can help you get the financing you need, regardless of your situation. I'm Tony Page, and I've helped thousands of customers in Northeast Ohio and Western Pennsylvania buy a vehicle. Bad credit, no problem. I can get you approved for a low-interest loan and maybe even a low-payment lease on a new car at the #1 Chevy dealership in Trumbull County for 3 years in a row. Visit HubbardChevy.com to get pre-approved or come see me, Tony Page, to get a new vehicle today. Remember, folks, Hubbard can help.
Welcome back to Running Point Monday edition as we wrap this one up and get ready for the Power Hour 3 to 4. Anthony Hartwig, Ty Bartell on the network tonight. I'm at South Range for Boardman coming into town for volleyball. Ty, you are at Struthers. They are hosting Warren Harding, correct?
Correct.
All right, that's what to look forward to tonight. We'll be back tomorrow, 12 to 3. We will see you then. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're taking a 21-hour break. Don't go anywhere. Power Hour next, 3 to 4.